The story begins in a dark, twisted forest where the trees look like old, bony fingers. Everything is covered in pitch-black mold and moss, creating an atmosphere that feels like a literal graveyard. Looking up, the sky is a murky, suffocating gray that never clears. It is the kind of place that tells you right away this isn't somewhere anyone would ever want to visit. In this nightmare realm, bizarre monsters lurk around every corner. Our boy Kim Woojin, a man with messy black hair and a weary gaze, is currently pinned down by a multi-eyed beast. This creep is drooling all over him while pinning his shoulders to the dirt. Kim Woojin is desperately struggling, his face contorted in pain as the monster's heavy weight crushes the air out. The monster opens its massive maw, revealing rows of jagged, razor-sharp teeth. It is a terrifying sight, and it looks like Kim Woojin is about to become this creature's midnight snack. Suddenly, blood splatters everywhere as the scene turns into a gruesome mess. Kim Woojin realizes that if he dies here, he'll just wake up from this hellish dream and return to reality. Right then, he bolts upright in bed, gasping for air and drenched in sweat. He is back in his room, but the transition from a life-or-death struggle to a quiet bedroom is jarring. This has been his life for 12 years now. Kim Woojin looks like a wreck, with deep dark circles under his eyes and unkempt stubble, showing just how much this cycle has taken. He grips his neck, still feeling the phantom pain of being crushed. That damn dream again. The pain is so real that it feels like he is actually dying every single night. Outside, the modern city is bustling under a clear blue sky. It's a sharp contrast to the dark forest, but for Kim Woojin, this reality is just another kind of prison. He spends his days documenting the horrors he faces. In a cluttered notebook, he draws detailed monster anatomy and writes tactical notes, studying their weaknesses to survive just a little bit longer. Kim Woojin stands in his messy room, appearing sickly and exhausted in his simple white t-shirt. He tells himself he can endure the physical pain, but his body is clearly reaching its limit. His apartment is a survivalist's bunker, filled with weights, boxing bags, and stacks of research. It's clear that everything he does in this world is preparation for the fight in the next. The guy is absolutely drained, but he is terrified of closing his eyes. He admits that what's more painful than dying is actually the act of sleeping, because it sends him back. He recalls being torn apart by a wolf-like beast, the memory still fresh in his mind. Every time he falls asleep in reality, he is instantly transported back to that ruthless nightmare world. He remembers being impaled by a blade, blood gushing from his chest. The cycle is simple: die in the dream, wake up in reality. But the psychological toll is becoming too much. Sitting on his bed, he clutches his chest, coughing through the exhaustion. There is no way he can ever get a proper night's sleep when every rest period is a lethal battle. This guy is frustrated and exhausted, cursing his luck. He has spent over a decade living this double life, and it's slowly killing him from the inside out in both worlds. To stop dying in that hellish forest, he dedicated 12 years to mastering weaponry, martial arts, and jungle survival. He transformed himself into a lean, battle-hardened version of himself in his dreams. In the nightmare world, he is a different person, sharp, focused, and lethal. His eyes glow with determination as he prepares to strike, his sword ready to cleave through any monster in his way. Thanks to his intense training, he started dying less often in the nightmares. He moves with surgical precision, cutting down beasts with a single, powerful swing of his heavy blade. However, his success in the dream world doesn't change his misery in reality. Back in his room, he holds his head in despair, the weight of his double life feeling completely unbearable. Kim Woojin stares blankly, realizing that the fundamental problem is still sleep. No matter how strong he gets in the nightmare, he always has to return to this weak, dying body. Kim Woojin visits a psychiatrist, a professional woman in a lab coat. She suggests that our boy needs to find a hobby or something he actually wants to do. He repeats her words, looking totally hollow. This guy feels like the world is fatting, and honestly, there's nothing left for him to care about anymore. Kim Woojin stands in his room, looking at his research board. For the first time, he isn't afraid of the monsters. He just wants to fall asleep and stay that way forever. The guy looks absolutely drained, his messy hair and stubble showing the toll of 12 years without real rest. He just wants to sleep soundly, even if it's only for one night. Suddenly, blood begins to drip from his nose. This isn't just exhaustion anymore. It looks like something inside him has finally snapped after years of constant physical and mental strain. Kim Woojin's eyes widen as blood pours from his mouth, staining his hands. He clutches his chest, looking completely shocked as his body finally gives out under the weight of his double life. His vision starts to blur as he loses consciousness. The world around him fades into a dull gray, and for the first time in over a decade, the constant headache is finally disappearing. With a heavy thud, our boy collapses onto the floor, lying face down in a growing pool of his own blood. It seems like his time in the real world has officially ended. He lies motionless on the cold floor, his face pale and eyes half closed. The silence in the room is deafening, marking the tragic end of his struggle to survive in modern Korea. In the darkness of death, Kim Woojin notices something strange. His body feels incredibly light, and that terrible, persistent headache that plagued him for 12 years has completely vanished into thin air. Instead of a hospital room, he sees a bright blue sky. Fresh air fills his lungs, making him feel like he actually slept well for the first time since this whole nightmare began. Our boy slowly opens his eyes, looking up at the canopy of massive, strange trees. He is confused, wondering if he actually died or if this is just another layer of the dream. The realization hits him like a truck. He is back in the nightmare world. He can hear the rustling of leaves and distant sounds of creatures, but everything feels much more permanent now. Kim Woojin is leaning against the thick roots of a giant tree, wearing his tattered hunter gear. He looks younger and much healthier, no longer the sickly wreck he was in reality. This guy stares in disbelief, his eyes sharp and clear. He has suffered in this place for 12 years, but waking up here while feeling this good is a brand new experience. Suddenly, he senses a presence nearby and looks to the side with a shocked expression. Even in his refreshed state, his survivor instincts are screaming at him that something is watching. A reptile demon beast stalks him from behind a tree, its long, split tongue flickering in the air. This multi-eyed predator is exactly the kind of nightmare Kim Woojin has been studying. The lizard-like monster lets out a low growl, its many eyes focusing on the intruder. It looks incredibly muscular and fast, clearly viewing the young hunter as its next easy meal. Kim Woojin stays calm, hiding behind a thick root as he watches the beast. He recalls the sheer amount of blood he lost back home, confirming his suspicion about his actual death. He thinks back to his lifeless body on the apartment floor. If he really died in reality, it means there's no waking up this time. This forest is his only world now. He crouches low, pulling his hood up to blend into the shadows. If this is his new home, he needs to play it smart, using every bit of knowledge he painstakingly gathered. Kim Woojin stands up, his hooded cloak fluttering in the wind. He knows that if he dies here now, there's no waking up in a warm bed. Death will finally be permanent. His gaze turns cold and determined. From this moment on, he isn't a victim of a nightmare anymore. This place is his new reality, and he plans to be the top predator. The reptile demon beast prepares to pounce, unaware that its target knows exactly how it hunts. Kim Woojin is ready to do whatever it takes to survive in this lethal forest. He narrows his eyes, analyzing the situation with surgical precision. He decides that fighting right now isn't the best move, planning to lure the monster into a place it hates. Kim Woojin cracks a small smirk, finally feeling alive after years of training. The stakes are crazy high, but he's never been more ready to face whatever is lurking in the shadows. This guy reaches for his dagger, feeling a strange, electric spark as the metal slides out. His survivor instincts are finally wide awake, and he's done being the prey in this forest. Our boy Kim Woojin lunges at the reptile beast, his sword swinging with a lethal arc. He's done running from these nightmares. It's time to turn the forest into his personal hunting ground. He stands his ground, feeling strangely light and energetic. He wonders if it's because he finally slept well, or if this younger body is just built different than his old, sickly self. The reptile demon beast lunges with terrifying speed, its massive claws digging into the dirt as it snaps its jaws. It's a literal mountain of muscle and scales, but Kim Woojin isn't flinching. The monster lets out a deafening roar that shakes the very trees around them. Its many eyes glow with a primal hunger, completely focused on tearing the young hunter limb from limb. Kim Woojin grips his sword hilt so tight his knuckles turn white. Every single cell in his body is screaming at him to stop playing defense and unleash his true survival instincts. His gaze sharpens as a red glint flickers in his eyes. He is no longer the exhausted office worker from reality. He is a predator who has been waiting 12 years for this. With a surgical strike, he slashes right through the monster's thick hide. Blood sprays into the air like a fountain as his blade carves a path through the creature's massive, muscular neck. Kim Woojin looks absolutely badass as blood splatters across the scene behind him. He doesn't even blink, his focus solely on making sure this monster stays down for good this time. The massive body of the reptile demon beast thuds onto the forest floor, sending a cloud of dust and debris into the air. It's a heavy, satisfying sound that signals his victory. Our boy stands over the fallen beast, looking like a total legend. He is covered in monster blood, but he looks more alive and powerful than he ever did in the real world. In the distance, pillars of ethereal light pierce through the dark, murky sky. It is a mysterious and beautiful sight, suggesting there is much more to this world than just dark forests. Kim Woojin isn't done yet. He kneels beside the carcass and starts cutting into its chest. He knows these monsters carry something valuable inside that could be the key to his survival. He peels back the flesh to reveal a glowing blue core, pulsing with a strange, magical energy. It's the ultimate reward for his first real hunt in this permanent nightmare world. He holds the radiant core in his hand, his face still streaked with blood. He looks at it with a mix of fascination and grim determination, realizing its importance for what's ahead. Kim Woojin stares at the core with a cold, intense gaze. He can feel the power radiating from it, and he knows that every hunt from now on will only make him stronger. He brings the core close, his mouth slightly open as if he is savoring the victory. This isn't just a dream anymore, this is his life, and he is going to own it. Leaving the carcass behind, he starts walking deeper into the forest. He has no intention of looking back at the world he left behind. His only goal now is to survive. His face is covered in blood, and his eyes glow with a fierce, red light. He swears to himself that in this dark fantasy world, he will survive no matter what it takes. First, he needs to find a safer place to regroup. He moves through the shadows with the confidence of a seasoned hunter, his every step calculated and silent as he heads forward. He heads toward the brighter part of the forest, unaware that someone is watching him. Unknown, blonde hunter is hidden nearby, his sharp gaze fixed on the mysterious new survivor in town. Han Segun leans against a tree, surviving in this strange new world. He's been here for a while now, trying to make sense of his surroundings while staying alive. The sunlight filters through the dense forest canopy, casting long shadows across the ground. It's quiet, but the air feels heavy with the constant threat of hidden monsters. Our boy closes his eyes for a moment, enjoying a brief flash of peace. In a world this dangerous, even a second of quiet is a luxury he can't afford. He wakes up feeling refreshed after what he calls a perfect night of sleep. He is slowly getting used to the harsh life of a wilderness survivor in this place. Leaves flutter through the air as a light breeze passes through the trees. The forest seems empty, but Segun knows better than to let his guard down even once. It's been a month since he crossed over, and now he's hacking through the brush. He is moving with purpose, focused on finding his next meal or target in the wild. Just because he's a fighter doesn't mean he goes looking for trouble without a reason. Segun is smart enough to know that unnecessary combat is just a death wish here. He watches from the shadows as a monstrous bat-like creature feeds on its prey. Risking his life for nothing but fun would be total madness in a place like this. The urge to jump into the fray is strong, but this dude holds back. He leans against a massive trunk, waiting for the perfect moment to make his move. The only time he truly hunts is when he needs to fill his stomach. Right now, he's getting pretty hungry, and that bat monster looks like a decent meal. This guy strikes with lethal precision, his blade cutting through the air like a razor. The monster never stood a chance against his sudden and violent ambush from the shadows. A glowing blue core emerges from the creature's chest, radiating a mysterious and ancient power. Segun knows exactly what this is. It's his ticket to getting stronger in this world. He pulls the glowing essence from the monster's body, his expression cold and determined. Consuming these cores is the only way for him to survive in this living nightmare. Our boy swallows the energy, feeling a surge of power course through his veins. His eyes flash with a predatory light as the monster's strength becomes his own. Ever since he started eating these cores, adapting to this harsh environment has become much easier. He sits back, letting the new power settle into his aching muscles. While resting, this guy discovers something else hidden among the gear of his current body. He reaches into a leather pouch, curious about what secrets it might hold. He pulls out a bronze token and realizes he can actually read the strange writing. Apparently, the body he's in belonged to some low-level, third-class mercenary in this world. The token is worn and scratched, but the rank is clear enough for him to see. It's a small detail, but it tells him a lot about his current situation. Segun stares at the tag, his mind racing with the implications of this discovery. This isn't just a random forest. There's an actual society or civilization out there. If there are mercenaries, then there must be towns and people living in this world. Our boy looks around, his survival instincts clashing with a new sense of curiosity. A sudden beam of light breaks through the trees, illuminating a potential path forward. He looks up, squinting at the brightness that seems to promise an escape from the woods. But wait, something catches his eye on the forest floor, making him freeze instantly. This dude's sharp senses just saved him from making a very painful mistake. He jumps back as he realizes he was inches away from a deadly trap. This guy stares at the metal teeth hidden under the dirt, his heart pounding in his chest. It's a massive bear trap, chained down and ready to snap. Our boy realizes this wasn't left by a monster. There's definitely someone else hunting in these creepy woods. This means he's not the only predator around, and things just got way more complicated. Segun stays alert, scanning the area for any signs of a nearby settlement. Han Segun spots a building and thinks people might be living nearby. He moves quickly toward the structure, hopping for some answers in this strange new world. He reaches the outskirts of the settlement, eyes fixed on the potential sanctuary. The forest clears, revealing a lonely house standing in the distance under the pale sky. Our boy approaches a small, rustic cabin tucked away in the shadows of the giant trees. It looks well kept, which is a good sign for his survival chances. He stares in surprise, confirming it's an actual house in the middle of this wild forest. Finding civilization here is the last thing he expected to happen. This guy knocks on the door and calls out, but there's no immediate response. He tentatively pushes it open, wondering if the place is currently empty or occupied. Inside, the house is quiet and filled with various supplies. Segun's attention is immediately drawn to a peculiar leather-bound book sitting alone on the dusty wooden table. He reaches out, his gloved hand hovering over the ancient volume. There's something special about this book that he can sense just by looking at its ornate cover. This dude picks up the book and reads the title out loud. It's called Demonic Realm Chronicles, and he can barely believe his own luck right now. Suddenly, his eyes widen as he feels a cold, sharp presence behind him. He freezes instantly, realizing he's no longer alone in this small, quiet room. This guy starts flipping through the pages, finding detailed records of the world's history. He realizes that everything he needs to know is recorded meticulously right here. For him to survive in this dangerous new world, this book is an absolute necessity. He grips it tighter, knowing he can't afford to let it go. Just as he turns to leave, a heavy floorboard creaks right above him. Someone is moving stealthily, and they've already got him in their sights with a weapon. An old man drops down from above, aiming a crossbow directly at him. "Who are you?" the stranger demands, his voice low and filled with deep suspicion. The homeowner doesn't lower his weapon for even a second. He threatens to put a hole in Segun's head if he doesn't start explaining himself right now. Our boy is relieved to see another person, but the situation is far from friendly. He wonders if this guy has mistaken him for some common robber. Segun tries to stay calm, explaining he only came in out of curiosity. He keeps his hands visible, trying to de-escalate the tension in the small cabin. The old man isn't interested in his excuses and tells him to get lost. He makes it clear that he has no business with the young intruder. Segun nods, pretending to understand as he slowly backs away from the table. But his mind is already working on a way to keep that important book. His hand moves toward the leather-bound volume one last time. He knows he can't survive out there without the information contained in those ancient, dusty pages. Our boy asks if he can possibly borrow the book to read. He even offers to pay whatever price the old man deems fair for the item. The stranger's expression remains hard and cold as he stares down his target. He bluntly asks what will happen if he simply refuses to grant the request. This guy's eyes go dark as he realizes that survival often requires making tough choices. He absolutely needs this book, and he's not leaving here without it. His hand drops to his waist, reaching for the hilt of his weapon with a sharp motion. The time for polite negotiation is officially over for him. Segun makes it clear, if the old man won't hand over the book, he's ready to play the villain. That weird red glow in his eyes means big trouble is coming. Our boy draws his blade, forcing Hector to level his crossbow in response. The tension in the cabin is insane as they both wait for the other to blink. Hector stares intensely, his finger hovering over the crossbow's trigger. He's trying to gauge whether this young intruder is a genuine threat or just a lost soul in the woods. Han Segun watches the old man closely, his eyes glowing with a faint, predatory red light. He's confident in his own strength, even against such a seasoned and dangerous warrior. The tension in the small room is thick enough to cut with a blade. Neither man moves, waiting for the other to make the first move in this deadly standoff. Surprisingly, the stranger lowers his weapon, admitting that a real robber wouldn't be babbling about books. He introduces himself as Hector, much to our boy's immense relief and surprise. Segun quickly offers an alias, calling himself Kim Woojin to hide his true identity. He notices the shift in Hector's posture as the immediate threat of violence finally fades away. Hector finds the name a bit peculiar, but decides not to press the issue. Segun simply asks to be called Jin, hoping to keep things simple for the time being. Our boy breaks into a nervous sweat, worried that his lie might be too obvious. He realizes that keeping up a fake identity might be harder than he initially thought. Hector explains that the book is incredibly precious to him, so he won't be lending it out. However, he offers Segun a place to stay while he reads the volume. In exchange for the hospitality and the knowledge, Segun agrees to help out with some simple chores. He bows his head, truly grateful for the unexpected act of kindness. The scene shifts to the exterior of Hector's lonely cabin as night falls over the dark forest. It's a quiet sanctuary in a world that's mostly filled with chaos. A pot of hearty vegetable soup bubbles over the warm fire, filling the room with a delicious aroma. Segun is officially staying at the old man's humble, safe house. Hector might be a bit gruff and blunt, but he doesn't seem like a bad person at heart. He encourages Segun to eat up and regain some much-needed strength. For the first time in what feels like forever, Segun enjoys a warm, home-cooked meal. He's moved by the simple comfort of the soup, his expression turning soft and calm. It's absolutely delicious, and our boy can't help but shed a single tear of joy. He starts to think that Hector might actually be an angel in human disguise. The next morning, Hector prepares his gear and announces that he's heading out into the woods. He warns Segun that his hunt might take quite a while today. This guy reveals that he's seeking revenge on a monster that slaughtered his old comrades. The weight of his tragic past is visible in his somber and determined expression. Hector looks incredibly strong, so seeing him this nervous makes Segun's heart sink. He realizes that whatever they are up against must be a truly terrifying and powerful creature. The old man walks out the door, his crossbow slung over his shoulder. Our boy watches him go, knowing that a considerably powerful monster is lurking nearby in the woods. Once he's alone, Segun finally picks up the ancient chronicles and begins to read. He needs to understand the history of this world if he wants to stay alive. All the stories in the book begin with the fall of the Northern Empire. He sees images of a great fortress engulfed in flames while soldiers march to war. The king of the Northern Empire, blinded by his own greed, committed a terrible sin. He laid his hands on the otherworldly gate, seeking forbidden and ultimate ancient power. The gate was said to hold the truth of all creation and immense strength. A pillar of red light erupted into the sky as the ancient seal was broken. On that fateful day, the calamity officially began and changed the world forever. Countless eyes peered out from the darkness of the gate, watching for their chance to strike. Monsters from another realm swarmed the north, turning a great empire into the demonic realm in just 9 years. It was a total nightmare that changed the world forever. Humanity finally fought back by forming the Order Alliance and building a massive barrier. These records describe how they scrambled to stop that demonic corruption from spreading any further. Segun closes the book, his mind racing with the information he just uncovered. He starts to piece together the terrifying truth about the world he now inhabits. He leans back, contemplating the records of the demonic realm's hierarchy. There's a lot of useful information here, but it also paints a very bleak picture for humanity. According to the chronicles, the strength of the monsters increases the deeper one travels into the heart of the realm. This realization makes his heart sink with worry. Out in the forest, Hector is already in the middle of a desperate struggle. He sprints through the undergrowth, his breath coming in ragged gasps as he's pursued. Segun remembers how the monsters seemed to get weaker as he moved toward the light. He wonders just how deep inside the demonic realm he had been wandering. Hector turns back, his face etched with strain and determination. He knows he can't outrun these beasts for much longer and must make a stand right here. A pack of monstrous wolves with glowing red eyes and distorted bodies emerges from the shadows. Hector realizes he's vastly outnumbered and in serious trouble now. The lead monster lunges with terrifying speed, its jaws open and ready to tear into its prey. Hector barely has time to react to the sudden, savage assault. He slides across the grass, narrowly avoiding a lethal strike from one of the beasts. Every movement is a gamble in this high-stakes game of life and death. Hector raises his crossbow and fires 3 glowing arrows in rapid succession. He's a skilled hunter, but even his expertise might not be enough this time around. The monsters are incredibly persistent. They don't even bother dodging the arrows, instead using their claws to snatch them right out of the air. They circle the old man, closing in from all sides to ensure their target has no possible way to escape. "Damn it," Hector growls, realization dawning on him as his weapon fails to thin the pack. He's starting to feel the weight of his age in this fight. Suddenly, he spots a dark silhouette standing near his house in the distance. He's shocked to see the young man he just took in is already here. Segun slowly steps forward, his eyes glowing with a menacing red light as he unsheathes his massive blade. He looks like a completely different person the moment he enters the fray. "Jin, run!" Hector screams at the top of his lungs, desperate to save the boy from certain death. He knows all too well how dangerous it is here. But Segun doesn't run. Instead, he leaps into the air with incredible power. Hector watches in pure disbelief as the young man he called Jin takes control of the situation. He never expected such raw power from a mere stranger. Segun's gaze is cold and focused, his predatory instincts taking over completely. He's no longer just a lost boy, he's a force of nature in this realm. In the blink of an eye, he blurs into the center of the wolf pack, looking to kick off a real fight. His eyes glow with a murderous red glint as he descends from above, swinging his blade to gift the nearest beast a strike that will instantly reconnect it with its ancestors. But these monsters are absolutely delusional. Seeing death staring them in the face, they don't even try to run, but instead raise their limbs for a head-on clash. Their pathetic flesh actually thinks it can devour cold, hard steel. He brings his massive blade down in a vertical arc, bisecting a monster with terrifying efficiency. Blood sprays across the grass as the creature falls dead instantly. The remaining wolves are stunned by the sudden slaughter of their pack mates. Hector can only stare, his own weapon forgotten in the face of such strength. The remaining monsters start backing away, their growls turning into terrified whimpers. They've finally realized that they aren't the predators in this clearing anymore. It's a total shift in power. This massive brown-furred beast snarls, staring down the new threat with a mix of rage and terror. It's standing its ground, and the real fight is finally starting. Hector's eyes widen in sheer disbelief as he witnesses something he never thought possible. A cold sweat breaks out on his forehead while he mutters a silent prayer to himself. The source of his shock is the young man standing amidst the carnage of the battlefield. Han Segun has just bisected the lead werewolf with a single, devastatingly powerful slash. Segun stands perfectly still for a moment, the blood of his enemy dripping slowly from his weapon onto the grass. He calls out to Hector, his voice cutting through the silence. With a faint, almost mocking smile, this dude asks if that creature was actually supposed to be a challenge. He's clearly gauging the power levels of this dangerous and new world. Kim Woojin stood with blood on his face, looking completely unfazed. He casually asked if the monster he just took down was actually strong, showing how little he feared these demonic beasts. Hector, a veteran survivor with a thick white beard, stared back in disbelief. He couldn't believe our boy was casually questioning the strength of a creature that haunts most seasoned hunters. The old man leaned in, his expression dead serious. He confirmed that the werewolf was incredibly powerful, emphasizing that most people wouldn't have stood a chance against such a terrifying monster. Kim Woojin absorbed the information with a cold, analytical gaze. He didn't seem impressed by the beast's reputation, simply processing the facts as he mentally prepared for the next wave. He turned his attention toward the forest where a whole pack of wolves was waiting. Our boy decided to handle the remaining beasts before hearing the rest of Hector's interesting story. The pack lunged forward, teeth bared and eyes glowing with feral hunger. These weren't just regular wolves. They were demonic beasts ready to tear any human intruder to shreds without hesitation. Kim Woojin gripped his blade, his own eyes starting to glow with a menacing red light. He admitted 40 wolves might be trouble if he was careless, but he remained totally calm. Instead of a reckless brawl, our boy planned a tactical strike. He decided to target the pack's second in command, knowing that taking out their morale leader would cause the rest to scatter. His gaze sharpened, locking onto his specific target with predatory focus. He wasn't just looking for a kill, he was looking for the most efficient way to end the entire fight. There it was, an exceptionally large red wolf standing at the front of the pack. This was the one keeping the others' courage up, and it looked like a total nightmare. A wave of ferocious, murderous intent radiates from him. This is shaping up to be a brutal encounter for that wolf pack. The giant red wolf snarled, its blue eyes wide with aggression. It didn't realize that it had just become the target of the most dangerous predator in the entire forest today. Woojin's red eyes flare as he waits for the pack to swarm him all at once, planning to pick them off one by one. But suddenly the pack leader lowers its eyes. Wait, what? Is this creature actually trying to bail on the fight? The smaller wolves freeze in absolute terror as they see their leader turn tail and bolt. Their confidence evaporates on the spot. Chaos erupts instantly as the pack leader turns tail and flees, leaving the rest of them standing there with blank stares like a bunch of stuffed animals. The red wolf lets out a whimper of pure terror, a truly pathetic sight compared to the menacing beast that stood there just a few minutes ago. The forest is filled with the echoes of retreating whimpers as the pack vanishes into the shadows. Against 40 demonic beasts, Kim Woojin claimed victory with just a single, devastating swing of his blade. Our boy stands alone in the clearing. He watches the fleeing pack with an expression that says he's completely lost all interest in them. Hector watched from the sidelines, his jaw practically hitting the floor. He couldn't wrap his head around how those brave, aggressive wolves were now running for their lives like scared little puppies. The old man realized this guy wasn't just a brute. He was a genius at assessing the battlefield. Woojin had used psychology to win a fight that should have been technically impossible. One last wolf scrambled away, disappearing into the thick brush. The threat was gone, and the silence of the forest returned, leaving only the two men behind in the quiet clearing. Later, they arrived at a small, sturdy wooden cabin tucked away in the wilderness. It looked like a safe haven, though in this world, safety was always a very relative term. Hector spread out the werewolf hide, claiming it was worth a solid 40 gold coins. For a guy just trying to survive, that kind of cash was basically a total life changer. Kim Woojin just stared at the pelt, totally clueless about the local currency. He asked if that was actually a lot, trying to gauge how much this hunt really mattered. Hector tells him that 40 gold coins means he can live like royalty for 7 years without lifting a single finger, making this world look like a total gold mine. He stared at the werewolf corpse, genuinely confused. To him, the beast was a weakling, yet its head carried a massive bounty that didn't match its pathetic combat skills at all. A small grin crept across his face as the realization hit him. If trash monsters like this were worth so much, His future was looking incredibly bright and full of easy gold. Our boy was already planning his next big payday. Whenever he ran low on cash, he just needed to find more of these overvalued beasts and rake in the money. Life in this nightmare world was actually starting to look easier than his last 12 years of training. Hector started packing up jerky, silver coins, and a pioneer map for him. Hector handed over the supplies, including the valuable werewolf hide and a bag of silver. It was a solid starter kit for any hunter looking to make a name for themselves. The old man directed him to Pioneer Village to find a guy named Jacob. He promised Jacob would pay a fair price for the high-quality hide our boy was carrying. Woojin felt a bit hesitant about taking such a valuable gift. He asked if it was really okay to accept it, but Hector didn't seem to care about the money. Hector insisted that the hide was a fair payment for the kill. He had a personal grudge against the beast, so seeing it dead was worth more than any pile of gold. The veteran hunter reached out with a weathered hand, offering a final gesture of respect. He truly appreciated the revenge Woojin had delivered on his behalf after all these years. He thanked Jin for the revenge, his expression soft but firm. Hector hoped their paths would cross again someday, though survival in this world was never a guarantee for anyone. The two men shared a firm handshake, marking the end of their brief partnership. It was a rare moment of genuine human connection in a land usually filled with monsters and betrayal. Woojin thanked the old man for everything before preparing to head out. He had his map and his supplies, ready to face whatever the Pioneer Village had in store for him. The small cabin stood quiet in the clearing as the sun began to set. It had been a brief sanctuary, but our boy's journey was only just beginning in this vast world. With his gear strapped to his back, Woojin gave a polite bow and started his trek. Hector watched him go, likely wondering if he'd ever see the talented young hunter again. He disappeared into the dense forest, following the path marked on his new map. The world ahead was dangerous, but he was more than prepared to handle whatever crawled out. As he walked, a pair of eyes watched him from a distance. Mutt, the red wolf from earlier, was perched high on a rock, silently tracking our boy's every move through the trees. Mutt sat tall, its strange twin tails twitching in the air. It didn't attack, instead letting out a low sound as it kept its gaze fixed on the human walking below. Close up, the wolf's blue eyes glowed with strange intelligence as it snarled. This wasn't a normal animal, and it seemed to have a very specific interest in following Kim Woojin. After the intense fight with the wolf pack, Kim Woojin, Jin, finally reached the outskirts of Pioneer Village. This was a settlement built with massive walls meant to keep the nightmares out. Looking at the towering wooden fortifications, our boy couldn't help but be impressed. This was the first sign of human civilization he'd seen since waking up in this terrifying new world. At the gates, the security was tight. The guards were armed to the teeth, and they weren't exactly handing out warm welcomes to strangers. Thankfully, Woojin managed to talk his way inside. As he walked through the muddy streets, he realized this place was well stocked for a frontier town. But there was something off. The atmosphere felt heavy with suspicion and suppressed violence. Everywhere he turned, people were staring. These weren't friendly neighbors. They looked like hardened mercenaries and thugs who would slit your throat for a copper coin if you even blinked. Woojin kept his guard up, noticing how everyone was on high alert. He was a complete stranger here, and in a place like this, being new was basically like having a target. He knew that in a world overrun by demonic beasts, there was one thing even more dangerous than the monsters roaming the woods. It was a lesson he'd learned the hard way. That dangerous thing was other people. Human greed and betrayal could be far more lethal than claws or teeth, especially when there were no laws left to hold the monsters back. Following Hector's directions, he eventually found the local tavern. The sign swinging above the door was a bit worn, but it was exactly the place he was looking for to sell the hide. Pushing the doors open, he stepped into a room filled with the smell of cheap ale and unwashed bodies. It was loud, crowded, and perfectly suited for the man he needed. Our boy moved through the crowd, ignoring the glares from the rowdy patrons. He wasn't here to make friends or have a drink. He had business that required a specific contact. He walked straight up to the bar and placed his heavy pack on the counter. The man behind the bar didn't even look up at first, just offering him a cheap beer. Woojin didn't have time for small talk or a drink. He leaned in and asked the bartender if he knew where he could find a man named Jacob to handle some business. The man pauses his work, his eyes shifting toward a patron sitting near Jin. The nearby customers fall deathly silent, sensing that something interesting is about to go down at the bar with this newcomer. As it turns out, this fruit-munching guy is exactly the one he's looking for. Jacob introduces himself with a slick, greasy grin, but Woojin immediately labels him a professional scammer just by looking at his face. He told the creep that Hector had sent him. Apparently, the old man had mentioned that Jacob would be willing to pay a fair price for a high-quality werewolf hide he'd found. The moment the words werewolf hide left his mouth, Jacob nearly jumped out of his skin. He couldn't believe an old-timer like Hector had actually managed to take down a monster. Jacob started unrolling the massive hide, his eyes practically turning into gold coins. Woojin didn't bother correcting him about who actually did the killing, he just wanted his payment in full. This guy was absolutely mesmerized. A werewolf hide of this quality was worth a fortune, and you could see the gears in his head turning as he plotted his next move. He kept muttering about how the old man finally pulled it off. In his mind, there was no way a young, scrawny-looking kid like Woojin could have hunted such a beast. A nasty grin spread across the scammer's face. He thought he'd just hit the jackpot, assuming he could easily bully this delivery boy out of his valuable cargo without paying him. Jacob laughed, praising Hector's skill while secretly planning to keep every single coin for himself. He didn't realize he was playing with fire by trying to cheat our main character. Right then, a group of massive thugs stepped out from the shadows, surrounding Woojin. It was a classic setup. The tavern owner was about to rob him in broad daylight for the hide. Woojin's face went cold. After 12 years of hellish training, these tavern thugs didn't scare him at all. He stood his ground, calmly asking what the hell they were trying to pull. Jacob threw the massive werewolf hide over his shoulders with a smug grin. The creep basically stole the loot right in front of him, telling our boy to beat it or die. Kim Woojin, Jin, realized his instincts were right. This guy was a total scammer. He mentioned that Hector had trusted the man, but it was clear that trust was completely misplaced. Jacob just smirked, calling his blatant theft a simple investment. He claimed that supplying Hector was a financial loss and that taking this hide was just a way to settle the debt. The creep clutched the werewolf hide, insisting he needed it to cover his previous losses. He clearly thought our boy was just some harmless delivery kid who wouldn't fight back. As he watched the scammer, Woojin's eyes flared with a dangerous red glow. For a split second, he seriously considered whether he should just end the man right then and there. He clenched his fist, trying to keep his cool. He was furious, but he wasn't sure if killing someone over a piece of fur was the right path to take just yet. Without warning, Jacob splashed his beer right in Woojin's face. It was a blatant insult, meant to humiliate him and show that the conversation was officially over in the worst way. Jacob told him not to get clever and just get lost. He really thought he could just toss some beer and walk away with a fortune while mocking the kid's dignity. Woojin stood there in silence, the cheap ale dripping from his hair. He didn't say a word, but the vibe in the tavern shifted instantly into something much more terrifying. He slowly stood up from his stool, his back to the scammer. Jacob was busy gloating, completely unaware that he had just signed his own death warrant by crossing the line. The tavern thugs begin to close in, their weapons drawn and ready. They expected a quick and easy robbery, but Woojin just stands up and walks straight toward the door, leaving everyone absolutely stunned. Thinking the kid was giving up, Jacob grinned and called it a smart choice. He really believed the threat of his thugs was enough to make anyone back down without a fight. But then Jacob noticed something was off. The look on Woojin's face wasn't fear, it was something much colder. The tavern owner's smug grin started to falter as he realized the mistake. With an explosive burst of strength, Woojin hoists a massive cabinet and slams it right against the exit, blocking the way. The deafening crash echoes through the room, officially kicking off the brawl. He turned his head slightly, calling out to Jacob one last time. The tone of his voice was dead calm, which made the situation feel 10 times more intense for everyone. This guy didn't even flinch. He told Jacob that if he really intended to pull off a scam, he should have gone for the neck instead of trying a cowardly backstab. Jacob was stunned by the kid's sheer audacity. He quickly ordered his thugs to attack, claiming that the brat clearly didn't value his own life enough to stay quiet. The tavern thugs charged in all at once, screaming at the top of their lungs. They swung their weapons with everything they had, aiming to end our boy right there. One thug lunged forward with a wild swing, but Woojin just watched him with bored eyes. He realized that killing trash like them wouldn't leave a single ounce of guilt. With a sudden blur of motion, he drew his blade. He decided that if these guys were so eager to play with their lives, he'd happily show them the consequences. Clang, with a swift flick of his blade, he parries a fatal strike in the blink of an eye. He makes the entire move look as easy as pie. One of the thugs froze in shock, realizing too late that this guy was on a completely different level. He barely had time to shout about how strong the kid was. Woojin's eyes locked onto his target, glowing with red intent. He wasn't just defending himself anymore. He was systematically dismantling everyone in the room with cold-hearted efficiency. Blood splatters across the floor as our boy delivers a brutal slash. He's so fast that the guy only has a split second to think. Not only is he strong, he's too quick, before realizing he's already been hit and collapsing. The hulking thug swings a heavy axe straight at his head. To the rest of the gang, this looks like a guaranteed kill with a bonus prize waiting for them. The axe shattered the floorboards, but our boy was already gone. He reappeared behind the thugs, finding his footing and getting ready to shut this whole tavern scam down for good. There are way too many of them. Before picking them off one by one, he needs to break their momentum. So he reaches out to grab more gear. With a massive heave, our boy flipped a heavy table right onto one of the attackers. The wood splintered on impact, sending the guy flying backward. One of Jacob's lackeys can only stare in pure horror as the table comes crashing down on him. He barely manages to scream out, "Oh shit." As the guy struggles with the gift, the table Jin just tossed him, he looks up only to see a cold flash of steel right above his head. He didn't hesitate for a second, slashing through his opponents with cold precision. Blood sprayed everywhere as he treated these thugs exactly like the wolves from earlier. Our boy's eyes were glowing with a terrifying red intent. He looked less like a survivor and more like the apex predator he was becoming. Jacob is losing his mind, sweat pouring down his face like a river as he witnesses the scene. The tavern is now a total wreck. While Jacob screams that no one can take on the mafia alone, Woojin is busy taking down the remaining thugs with ease. Jacob finally realizes they messed with the wrong man. His mind screams in pure panic, terrified that he's about to die a pointless death in some cheap tavern brawl. Woojin dodged a clumsy strike with a simple pivot. His 12 years of nightmare training made these guys look like they were moving in slow motion. He landed a heavy blow that sent a thug reeling. It wasn't just strength, it was the sheer efficiency of someone who'd mastered the art of survival. With another swift motion, he cut down the next attacker. The room was quickly becoming a graveyard for Jacob's greedy ambitions and his poorly trained goons. Standing among the fallen, Woojin looked completely unfazed. His red eyes pierced through the shadows, making it clear that he was the most dangerous thing in town. He stood there in the wreckage, his face covered in blood but his expression entirely cold. This guy was definitely not someone you'd want to scam. Seeing his entire crew get dismantled in seconds, Jacob finally snapped. He screamed for everyone to run, realizing his investment had turned into a death trap. The scammer and his remaining thugs scrambled for the exit. They didn't care about the werewolf hide anymore, they just wanted to get away from this monster. They burst through the doors and windows in a desperate attempt to escape. The tavern was silent now, except for the sound of splintering wood and heavy breathing. Jacob collapsed on the ground outside, gasping for air. He looked back at the tavern in pure terror, thinking he had finally escaped the nightmare. But as he looked up, his face turned pale with a new kind of fear. He saw something that made his heart skip a beat. A massive red wolf had entered the village, snarling at everyone in its path. The villagers were in a total panic, screaming at the sight of it. The beast slowly closes in on the cowering Jacob, just as Jin leaps out from behind. The guy is having the worst day of his life, and it's about to get a whole lot worse. The red wolf loomed over him, its glowing eyes fixed on the scammer. Woojin stepped out of the tavern, watching the scene with a curious expression. Our boy tilted his head, wondering why this specific monster was here. He recognized that distinct red fur and those sharp, predatory features immediately. Images of the wolf that hightailed it a few days ago flashed through his mind. Woojin realized it was the same scout wolf from before. It had followed him all the way back, but seeing the beast again only made our boy's expression turn ice cold. Kim Woojin, Jin, stared down the beast, his eyes cold and ready for another fight. He coldly asked if the creature had come all this way just to die as well. It looks like it actually gets what he just said. Its face goes completely blank, looking like a deer caught in high beams. But then something completely unexpected happened. Instead of attacking, the massive beast suddenly flopped onto its back and started whimpering like a lost puppy in front of our boy. It started panting and wagging its tail frantically, looking completely submissive. Woojin could only stare in silence, wondering what on earth had gotten into this supposedly dangerous monster. The wolf continued its bizarre, mutt-like display, rolling around and panting with excitement. The sight was so ridiculous that even the cowering thugs were left completely speechless. Jacob's thugs were absolutely baffled. They had expected a bloody massacre, but instead, they were watching a demonic beast act like a golden retriever at a park. Our boy looked down at the rolling monster, his expression a mix of confusion and irritation. He couldn't believe this fierce hunter was showing such pathetic, mutt-like behavior. The wolf kept panting, looking up at him with big, pleading eyes. A sudden thought crossed Woojin's mind, and he started to realize that the beast might actually be loyal. Without a single word, he points a straight finger at the bunch of scammers, leaving both man and beast frozen in shock. Wanting to test this new loyalty, Woojin pointed a finger at the remaining thugs and gave a simple, one-word command. He looked the wolf in the eyes and said, "Bite." Instantly, the wolf's playful demeanor vanished. Its eyes glowed with a sharp blue light, and its tail stiffened as it prepared to unleash the predatory instincts it had been hiding. With a terrifying roar, the beast lunged forward. It moved with the speed of a lightning strike, targeting the thugs who had tried to scam its new master just moments before. The tavern thugs didn't stand a chance. One of them let out a blood-curdling scream as the massive red wolf pinned him down, its sharp fangs bared and ready. The silhouette of the beast tearing into its prey was a gruesome sight. Blood sprayed across the village path as the mutt proved exactly why it was feared in the forest. Watching the absolute carnage unfold, Woojin didn't look horrified at all. He just let out a small, satisfied smirk and commented on how nice the whole display actually was. The Jacob scammer gasped in terror as he looked up. Mutt loomed over him, its massive form casting a shadow that signaled certain doom for the man who tried to play Jin. Mutt doesn't hesitate for a second, tearing into his lackeys with brutal efficiency. Blood splatters across the dirt as the beast mops up the trash that thought they could ambush our boy. Trembling and covered in sweat, the creep realized he was the last one left. Panic set in as he desperately tried to think of a way to wiggle out of this nightmare. Kim Woojin stared down at him with cold, unforgiving eyes. He wasn't the same pushover from his past life anymore, and the look on his face showed he was done playing nice. This guy immediately hit the ground, prostrating himself and begging for mercy. Internally, he mocked Jin as a moron, thinking a few fake tears and a humble apology would save his life. The creep gritted his teeth, hiding his true intentions behind a mask of regret. He figured he just needed to survive this moment to get his revenge later when Jin wasn't looking. Suddenly, a heavy sword slammed into the ground right in front of the man's face. The impact sent a shockwave through the dirt, making the scammer jump nearly out of his skin. Jin leaned in, his shadow towering over the pathetic figure. The air grew heavy with killing intent as he gripped his weapon, preparing to end this farce once and for all. Our boy looked absolutely disgusted by the man's display. He could see right through the lies, remembering how many times he'd been burned by people exactly like this back in Korea. A dark, red glow flickered in Jin's eyes as he smirked. He knew exactly what this guy was thinking, and he wasn't about to let another person treat him like a pushover. The scene shifts to a memory from Jin's past life. Back in a generic office, he sat across from his boss, apologizing for things that weren't even his fault just to survive. His factory manager sat there casually, dismissing Jin's concerns about his missing salary. The guy had the nerve to ask if he understood the company's difficult situation while ignoring his workers. Back then, Jin was way too soft-hearted for his own good. He just smiled and accepted the situation, believing that being a good worker would eventually lead to him getting paid. But that was a massive mistake. The calendar pages flipped as his 1-week delay turned into months of waiting, all while he struggled just to keep food on the table. One day, Jin walked into the office to ask for his money again. He found the factory manager literally practicing his golf swing, completely unbothered by the fact that his employees were starving. The manager looked at him with pure annoyance, calling him a punk for daring to interrupt his practice. It was clear the man had zero respect for the person actually doing the work. This jerk started gaslighting him, claiming they needed to stick together during tough times. He branded Jin as selfish for wanting his earned salary, treating him like a complete and total pushover. Returning to the present, Jin stood over the scammer, feeling the weight of those old memories. Living month to month like that felt absolutely shitty, and he was never going back. He turned his back on the creep, claiming he learned one valuable lesson from his past. The scammer's eyes widened, sensing an opening as he reached for a hidden weapon. The man's face twisted with a murderous expression. The fake tears were gone, replaced by a cold determination to kill the person who had just shown him a moment of mercy. He let out a sinister grin, thinking he finally had the upper hand. The coward believed Jin was just another naive kid who let his guard down at the absolute worst time. With a sudden burst of speed, the scammer lunged forward with a hidden dagger. He aimed right for Jin's back, intending to end the hunt with one dirty, underhanded strike. The guy screamed out in a frenzy, certain that his sneak attack would connect. He didn't realize that Jin had been waiting for this exact moment to test his new resolve. Jin's eyes glowed red as he effortlessly dodged the strike. He wasn't surprised at all, since he'd already predicted every single move this trash was going to make. Catching the man mid-swing, Jin stared him down with pure contempt. He coldly remarked that scammers always play the victim right before they actually try to kill you. Kim Woojin's gaze is icy as he prepares the final blow, declaring he has absolutely no room left in his heart for mercy or remorse. The unknown scammer's face twists in pure terror, realizing too late that his pathetic, manipulative games have finally run out of time and luck. Blood sprays the grass as our boy strikes with lethal precision, ending the threat before the coward can even think of begging one more time. It is a grisly scene. The man who tried to play Jin as a fool is now nothing more than just another bloody carcass in the woods. Looking down at the carnage, Jin's eyes glow with a dangerous red light. He's making a solemn, silent promise to himself in this very moment. Standing tall over the fallen trash, he vows that he is officially done being everyone's favorite pushover. There is no more room for playing nice anymore. With that bloody business finally settled, he turns his attention away from the dead, ready to move on and deal with the next major problem. Mud is still hanging around the campsite, watching him intently with a small bag held firmly in its teeth. Jin wonders what the beast wants now. The massive wolf drops the heavy bag at his feet. It seems this clever creature is actually trying to buy its way into his good graces. Turns out the bag is stuffed full of shimmering gold coins. Even the monsters in this strange world know how to pay a proper tribute. Kim Woojin is taken aback for a second. He really did not expect a terrifying demonic beast to act so much like a loyal pet dog. He asks the big guy if it actually wants to tag along. Mutt's excited reaction to the question tells him everything he needs to know. The giant wolf nuzzles into him, acting more like a playful, happy puppy than a terrifying predator that just finished killing a group of men. Looking at his brand new companion, Jin's expression softens slightly. Maybe having a powerful beast at his side isn't such a bad idea after all. He reaches out to pet the clever thing, officially accepting the tribute and the beast's absolute loyalty with one simple, gentle gesture of friendship. He tells Mutt they should try to get along from here on out. The unlikely duo is officially formed and ready for the road ahead. As the chapter title rolls across the screen, the scene shifts from the bloody forest toward the sprawling rooftops of a nearby pioneer city. Time passes quickly, and the bright morning sun begins to peek through the clouds, signaling the start of a brand new day for our hero. For the first time in ages, Jin finally wakes up in a real bed. Mutt is already awake, sprawled out comfortably on the floor nearby. Our boy can't help but smirk. That was easily the best, most restful sleep he has had since falling into this terrifying nightmare world years ago. He stretches his tired muscles while Mutt yawns loudly beside him. This morning feels so refreshing, it is almost like he could actually fly away. Outside by the stream, Jin begins the grim task of scrubbing the lingering blood and dirt off his tattered, travel-worn clothes in the cold water. He wipes the water from his eyes, revealing a body covered in deep scars from 12 long years of non-stop survival in the demonic world. Washing the blood from his sleeves, Kim Woojin realized he just crossed a major line. These were actual humans, his first kills since arriving in this brutal world. But staring at his hands, this guy didn't feel a shred of guilt. To him, those lowlifes were no different from the monsters he'd been hunting all along. Kim Woojin stares at his reflection in the stream, questioning his own lack of empathy. He wonders if he justifies the killing simply because those men were nothing more than scum. He remembers the intense rush he felt during the battle. It wasn't just survival. It was a dark thrill, exactly like the feeling he gets when hunting down dangerous monsters in the wild. Clutching his chest, our boy senses a fundamental change occurring deep within his soul. The scars on his body are visible reminders of a life defined by constant, brutal struggle for survival. He looks down at his hand, realizing that the person he used to be is slowly fatting away. The nightmare world is molding him into something far more cold and efficient. With red eyes glowing, Jin wonders if he's becoming cursed by this world. But he quickly dismisses the thought, deciding that surviving another day is really the only thing that actually matters. The scenery shifts as our boy prepares for a new chapter. He's determined that his life here will be a complete departure from the miserable, exploited existence he left behind in Korea. Accompanied by the massive Mutt, Jin heads toward civilization. He vows to never again suffer the absurdity of being a pushover and intends to live a life of true abundance instead. Under the shade of his hood, the hunter's expression is hard and determined. He isn't worried about the future anymore. He just wants to simply enjoy the present moment as a survivor. The towering walls of the 5th pioneer city finally come into view. Jin's first order of business is to sell the valuable pelt he's been hauling across the dangerous wilderness. Before entering the gates, our boy tells Mutt to stay nearby but remain out of sight. He knows bringing a demonic beast into the city center would cause way too much unnecessary trouble. Jin walks through the bustling city streets, blending into the crowd of commoners and children. He remembers from the chronicles that all monster bounties must be processed through the local Order Alliance. As he heads toward his destination, this guy can't help but wonder if Mutt is a bit of a mean name for his companion. But honestly, it's short and easy to remember. He arrives at a grand building with tall towers and white domes. This is the Order Alliance headquarters, the place where hunters can finally turn their hard-earned trophies into cold, hard cash. Inside, the Order Alliance clerk is having a very slow day, yawning and stretching at his desk. He has no idea that a legendary hunt is about to walk right through his door. Jin approaches the counter with his massive, heavy bundle. The bored clerk looks up, asking the traveler what brings him to the Alliance today in a tired, disinterested tone. Without saying a word, our boy slams the enormous pelt onto the counter. The weight of the kill makes the wooden table groan, finally catching the attention of the sleepy young clerk. Jin states his business clearly, telling the official he's here to collect a monster bounty. He stands there with a calm, confident aura that suggests he's seen much worse than a desk. The clerk barely looks at the trophy, dismissively calling it common dog skin. He tells Jin that this isn't a place to pull off stupid pranks on the Alliance's hard-working staff. But as he leans in for a closer inspection, the clerk's eyes suddenly bug out. He stops mid-sentence, realizing the texture and quality of the fur are definitely not from any common animal. This guy starts scrambling over the counter, his heart racing as he confirms the truth. He shouts out in disbelief, identifying the massive hide as a rare and extremely valuable werewolf pelt. Sweat beads on the clerk's forehead as he looks at Jin with newfound respect. He stammers out a question, asking if this random traveler actually managed to catch such a beast himself. Jin remains perfectly composed, giving a simple and direct confirmation. He caught the monster earlier, and now he just wants to get paid for the dangerous work he successfully completed. After the initial shock wears off, our boy is led into a private, grand room to wait. He sits at a massive table, looking remarkably out of place in such high-end surroundings. The guild official finally shows up with a heavy bag, apologizing for the delay. Turns out, verifying a werewolf pelt takes a while because they're worth so much money. He drops the pouch on the table with a heavy thud. It's filled with gold coins, the massive payout for Woojin's first big hunt in this dangerous new world. Kim Woojin stares at the heavy bag of gold coins sitting on the table. He calculates that this wealth is more than enough to live a very lazy life for at least 6 or 7 years. As he peeks inside the pouch, the sight of the shimmering coins makes him feel a strange sensation. It's a physical trembling that's completely different from the adrenaline rush he gets during a hunt. Our boy lets some of the gold slip through his fingers, a small smirk playing on his lips. He finally realizes that having a lot of money in this world is definitely a good thing. Just as he's enjoying the moment, the Order Alliance official speaks up with a nervous tone. Jin looks at him, curious about what else this man could possibly want from him right now. The official leans forward, asking if the traveler would be interested in taking on another special request. He admits that he actually has a major favor to ask of the talented monster hunter. Jin's eyes narrow with sudden interest as he repeats the man's words back to him. The prospect of earning even more gold is something that he definitely is not going to just turn down. The official sighs, explaining that a dangerous monster recently appeared at a nearby quarry. Its presence is causing a massive headache for the city's administration and the hardworking local laborers alike in the city. Because of this beast, the workers are too terrified to enter the quarry. This means they can't mine any bloodstone, which is preventing money from circulating properly throughout the entire pioneer city today. He paints a grim picture, saying the whole city is on the brink of ruin. Rumor has it that this particular monster is significantly stronger and more dangerous than a standard forest werewolf hide. Despite the danger, the official looks at Jin with a glimmer of hope. He tells our hero that he truly believes a skilled warrior like him could actually handle such a terrifying beast alone. Our boy remains calm, asking for the specific details regarding their problem. He wants to know exactly what kind of monster he'll be facing before he agrees to do any more dangerous work. The official reveals the creature's name is the Mad Skull. He explains that the Alliance has placed a staggering bounty of 70 gold coins on the head of this vicious, bone-masked demonic beast today. Jin freezes for a split second when he hears that name. He recognizes the Mad Skull immediately, having read about its legendary ferocity and nearly impenetrable defense in the ancient survival chronicles he found. A sudden memory flashes through his mind of a previous encounter with the beast. This is a monster he has already faced during his long, agonizing 12 years of survival in the nightmare world. He remembers its most defining feature is a massive, incredibly hard skull that acts like a natural shield. Its white, mask-like bone structure is nearly impossible to crack with a standard iron weapon today. Beyond its natural armor, the Mad Skull possesses an insane level of aggression. Its raw toughness and physical strength are completely incomparable to anything a simple werewolf could ever hope to dish out now. Our boy realizes exactly why the local hunters are struggling so much. It took him an entire month of constant combat to kill his first one, mostly because he died 28 times back then. The official watches him closely, his voice trembling slightly as he asks the question. He needs to know if Jin thinks he is actually capable of subduing such a legendary and lethal creature today. Jin remains perfectly silent for a long moment, letting the weight of the request hang in the air. He's carefully weighing the risks against the massive reward being offered for the job right now. Finally, his eyes glow a brilliant red as a confident grin spreads across his face. He accepts the challenge, declaring that his next prey for the hunt has officially been decided for him today. Kim Woojin arrived at the tiered quarry known as the mine. The industrial site was filled with heavy machinery, but the silence felt heavy and chilling for anyone looking for trouble. Our boy walked along the rocky ridges, recalling rumors about work stopping because of a mad skull. He knew this monster was no joke, having faced it many times before. The gloom of the mine gave off a creepy vibe that would make most people run. For Jin, it was just another day at the office, though he didn't plan on staying. He stepped into the heart of the site, hopping to finish the hunt quickly. In his world, efficiency was survival, and he had no intention of wasting daylight in this dump. Just as he started his search, a voice rang out from the shadows. A massive figure stood there, watching Jin's every move with a mix of curiosity and professional caution. This guy turned out to be Jonathan, captain of the Black Marlin mercenaries. He casually asked Jin to wait his turn, claiming his team got there first and was ready. Jin looked back, totally unimpressed by the concept of a queue for monster hunting. He survived 12 years in a hellscape where the only rule was first come, first kill. Jonathan just grinned, trying to play it cool despite the newcomer's cold stare. He wasn't looking for a fight, just trying to maintain order in his current hunting ground. The captain suddenly changed tactics, inviting Jin to join their team instead. He figured working together would be faster, showing off his squad of professionals standing ready in the background. Our boy weighed the options, knowing that waiting for them to finish would be a huge waste of time. He didn't want to fight humans, but he needed that loot. Jin decided that joining the mercenaries might actually be the smartest move. It meant sharing the rewards, but it also meant getting the job done without any unnecessary human drama. Even so, he wasn't about to lower his guard completely. Memories of backstabbing scum kept him sharp, knowing how easily people could turn on each other in a place like this. Jin gripped his sword, asking the captain why he'd even want a stranger's help. He had plenty of men already, so this sudden recruitment offer felt a little bit sketchy. Jonathan laughed it off, admitting he always prioritized safety over performance. To him, more hands meant less risk, even if it meant splitting the final paycheck with a lone wanderer. He looked Jin dead in the eye, claiming he could tell the dude was strong. The mercenary captain had a sharp instinct for talent, and something about Jin screamed high level. Jin noticed the captain started speaking formally, realizing these guys were weak against the strong. He asked why Jonathan suspected he was powerful, keeping his guard up despite the offer. Turns out the giveaway was the massive wolf following him. While the men talked, a girl named Claire was already busy pampering the beast like it was a house pet. Claire was amazed, mentioning how wolf monsters were notoriously independent and impossible to tame. Seeing one act so friendly toward a human was a total shock to the whole group. Jin stood there in disbelief, wondering when Mutt even popped out of hiding. He specifically told the wolf to stay out of sight, but apparently someone missed the memo today. The reason for the betrayal? High-quality cooked meat. Claire was feeding Mutt gourmet food that even Jin hadn't tasted yet, completely breaking the beast's fierce and loyal spirit for snacks. Mutt doesn't give a damn about his dignity anymore, focusing entirely on the delicious treat. But one sharp look from Jin is enough to make him break out in a cold sweat. It looks like the bond between master and pet has finally triumphed over his immediate cravings. He drops the meat and acts as obedient as a loyal puppy. The giant wolf looks back at Jin with a look of pure submission and loyalty, leaving the entire group stunned by its sudden change in behavior. Jin is speechless. This clueless creature actually thinks he's on its level, trying to share that junk with him like they're equals or something. But after those long days of wandering, sleeping in the wild and eating whatever scraps he could find, that piece of meat in front of Jin started to glisten like a true royal feast. Jin swallowed hard, sweat dripping down his face as he stared at the food. His body was reacting on its own, completely overwhelmed by a craving he hadn't felt in years. Our boy gazed at the meat on the ground, wondering when he last had a real meal. Survival in the nightmare world meant eating monsters, but this smelled like actual heaven. He looked totally conflicted, realizing a wolf was just eating that scrap off the dirt. His stomach was growling, but his pride was putting up a desperate, losing fight against hunger. His gloved hand reached out slowly, a silent battle for human dignity playing out in his head. The temptation was just too strong after years of eating whatever trash he could find. Suddenly, Claire held out a fresh bundle of meat, asking if he was hungry. Mutt loomed behind her, looking just as eager as Jin felt while he froze in complete shock. Jin stood there stunned, his eyes wide as he looked at the kind girl. He didn't expect anyone in this cutthroat world to offer him something so precious for absolutely nothing. Surrounded by glowing light and floating feathers, Claire looked like a literal goddess to him. He decided right then that she was someone he could actually trust in this dangerous land. The group marched deep into the mine, lanterns illuminating the dark, rocky tunnels. Jonathan led the way with confidence, while Jin followed behind, still processing the unexpected kindness he'd received. Jin took a bite, and his mind was blown by the savory, spicy juices. It was leagues better than the monster meat he'd forced down just to stay alive all this time. As they walked, Claire turned around with a friendly smile, realizing they hadn't properly introduced themselves yet. She wanted to bridge the gap between them before the big hunt started. The captain introduced himself as Jonathan, leader of the Black Marlin mercenaries, while the girl gave her name as Claire. They seemed like a solid, professional duo compared to other hunters. Our boy hesitated before introducing himself as Jin, keeping his real name a secret. Jonathan welcomed him to the team, telling him to speak up if he had any questions later. Jonathan flashed a confident grin, though he seemed a bit taken aback by Jin's serious tone. He sized up the lone hunter for a moment, sensing there was more to him. They finally reached the bottom of the massive quarry where the hunt would take place. Jonathan took command immediately, ordering the teams to set up nets and take their assigned positions. The captain turned to Claire, asking if she was ready to get started. She agreed without hesitation, while Jin watched from the sidelines, curious about how these professionals actually operated. Feathers suddenly began to float through the air, catching Jin completely off guard. He stared at the glowing particles, sensing a strange, powerful energy beginning to swirl around the entire area. Claire drifted gracefully as she opened her massive magic book, glowing with a brilliant light. Jin watched in total awe, having never seen actual magic performed right in front of him. A magic circle appeared on the pages as Claire began her incantations. Jin realized this was the same legendary power mentioned in the chronicles he'd read back in the other world. She closed her eyes, asking for a blessing upon the land in her own name. The air hummed with power as the spell began to take shape, bathing everyone in light. She cast Feather Step, surrounding the group with green energy and drifting white feathers. Jin felt the weight of his body change as the magical buff took hold of his limbs. Jonathan felt the power surging through him, praising Claire's skills as being top-notch. He looked more than ready to face whatever monster was hiding in the depths of the mine. Claire warned the captain that the buff would only last about 3 to 5 minutes. Jonathan didn't seem worried, simply stretching his arms as the green aura flared around his body. The captain stepped forward, his boots glowing with magical energy as he prepared to move. He told everyone to stay ready while he went to draw out their dangerous target. Jonathan sprinted into the quarry to lure the mad skull, moving with insane speed. Glowing feathers trailed behind him as he zipped across the ground faster than any normal human. Jin watched with a smirk, totally impressed by the captain's massive speed boost. He had to admit, seeing this magic in action made the whole situation look pretty cool. Jin watched Claire as magical feathers drifted around her. He couldn't help but wonder if he could eventually learn to harness such power for himself in this dangerous world. One of the mercenaries gripped his spear, shouting that there was no time to waste. The dreaded mad skull was approaching fast, and the entire team needed to be ready. The team worked together to set up a massive net trap at the bottom of the quarry. Jonathan warned everyone to stay sharp, knowing a single mistake could be fatal. Jin observed the formation, nodding the mercenaries' plan to lure the beast into a trap and then overwhelm it. He admitted it was a solid strategy for a group hunt. Our boy remained skeptical as he stared ahead with a serious expression. He questioned whether this standard group tactic would actually be enough to bring down a monster like the Mad Skull. Jonathan charged forward with incredible speed, fueled by the green magical energy of the Feather Step spell. He moved directly toward the massive, horned beast to lure it into position. The captain gritted his teeth and let out a loud command to the trap team. The timing had to be perfect if they wanted to catch the charging monster in their net. Jonathan nimbly dodged a vicious strike from the Mad Skull, his movements boosted by the magic. The massive creature roared as it lunged forward, nearly catching the agile mercenary captain. The mercenaries grunted as they pulled on the thick ropes, their eyes widening in shock. The terrifying mad skull had finally emerged, and it was even bigger than they expected. The massive beast found itself entangled in the heavy nets, thrashing its enormous tusks in a blind rage. Initially, it seemed like the mercenaries' systematic trap was actually going to hold. The trap team strained with all their strength, desperately trying to keep the net secure. They yelled for everyone to pull, hopping to keep the thrashing monster pinned to the ground. With the target temporarily restrained, Jonathan gave the signal for the spear team to move in. He knew they had to strike fast before the beast could break its bonds. The hunters leveled their sharp spears, preparing to pour their collective firepower into the trapped monster. They moved with professional coordination, surrounding the beast from all sides at the bottom. The men lunged forward with their weapons, stabbing at the mad skull's thick hide. They hoped to finish the fight quickly while the massive creature was still entangled in the net. The mad skull let out a deafening roar of pain and fury as the spears struck home. Its red eyes glowed with malice while it struggled against the confining ropes. Suddenly, the ground shook as the beast surged with unexpected power. The mercenaries holding the ropes were nearly yanked off their feet, realizing their plan was starting to fall apart. With a violent surge of raw strength, the mad skull began to tear through the heavy nets. The beast's power far exceeded what the mercenaries' equipment was designed to handle. Jin watched the scene unfold from a distance, his eyes narrowing as he realized the situation had turned sour. He whispered that this was definitely not going according to plan. The massive creature easily overpowered the entire team, sending mercenaries flying as it broke free from the net. Panic began to set in as their systematic approach completely failed against it. One of the hunters shouted in frustration as his comrades were thrown around like dolls. He couldn't believe so many professional mercenaries were failing to hold down just one single monster. The mad skull let out a final, thunderous roar as it shredded the last of the net. Its eyes glowed a fierce red as it prepared to retaliate against its attackers. A close-up of the creature's eye revealed the pure, primal rage burning within. It was no longer a cornered animal, but a vengeful predator ready to tear everyone apart. The mad skull launched itself into a full-speed charge, heading straight for Claire. With the mercenaries' formation broken, she was left completely vulnerable to the beast's massive tusks and weight. Claire completely froze as the monster lunged, her magic failing when she needed it most. It looked like game over for her as their entire plan fell apart in an instant. Right then, our boy moved like a total blur, stepping directly in front of the girl. He was so fast that the other mercenaries just stood there, completely stunned by his speed. Jin stood his ground against the massive mad skull, blocking its path to Claire. The terrified girl watched from behind as the lone hunter prepared to face the beast head-on. Bracing his feet firmly, Jin dug his boots into the ground to withstand the coming impact. The force of his movement kicked up a cloud of dust as he prepared himself. With a grunt of effort, Jin reached out and grabbed the mad skull's enormous tusk with his bare hands. He strained against the monster's overwhelming power, refusing to be pushed back. The mad skull let out a low growl, its hot breath hitting Jin's face as its red eyes glowed with malice. The beast seemed surprised that a mere human could resist it. Claire reached out in desperation, screaming a warning that the situation was far too dangerous. She couldn't believe Jin was actually trying to stop the rampaging beast with his own strength. Jin didn't even look back as he told Claire not to worry. His voice was remarkably calm despite the terrifying monster currently trying to crush him into the dirt right now. The hunter stared right into the beast's eyes, confidently declaring that he knew exactly how to take it down. He wasn't just guessing. He had years of survival experience guiding him. A dark smirk played across Jin's face as his eyes began to glow with a menacing red light. It was clear that the true hunt was only just beginning for him. Kim Woojin leaps through the air, grabbing onto the massive tusks of the mad skull. The giant boar roars as this guy tries to keep his balance during the intense battle. He quickly spins and shoves the beast as it lunges at him. Woojin handles the situation with extreme agility, his eyes scanning for any opening to land a decisive blow. The mad skull lets out a deafening roar, its red eyes fixed on the target. This creature is a pure powerhouse, and even one direct hit could end things for our boy. Woojin grinds his teeth, his gaze sharpening as he prepares for the next exchange. He knows he can't afford any mistakes while facing a monster with this much raw strength. The beast charges again with terrifying speed, forcing Woojin to hold his ground. He swings his blade, trying to find a weak point through that thick, armored hide. Our boy huffs, realizing his current strength might not be enough to take this thing down easily. He grips his sword tight, his body starting to feel the strain of combat. This mad skull is absolutely massive, its tusks looking like giant blades ready to impale anything in its way. It bellows in rage, determined to crush the human standing before it. A close call leaves Woojin cursing his own lack of focus for a split second. He realizes he let his guard down and needs to get back into the zone immediately. Suddenly, glowing white feathers begin to swirl around Woojin as he looks on in confusion. Something is changing, and he can feel a strange new energy washing over his entire body. Turns out, Claire decided to step in and help from the sidelines. She casts a powerful magic spell, sending a wave of mana toward our boy to turn the tide. Woojin is stunned as his body suddenly feels incredibly light, almost like he's floating. He describes it as finally dropping a heavy 30-kilo pack he's been carrying around for years. With this boost, a confident smirk plays on his lips. This guy finally has the edge he needs to execute his plan and take down the giant pig once and for all. Jonathan and the other mercenaries shout that they're coming to help, but Woojin isn't having it. He yells for them to stay back, wanting to handle this fight completely solo. The captain, Jonathan, freezes in his tracks, looking surprised by the sudden command. He didn't expect the new guy to be so insistent on fighting such a dangerous monster alone. Feathers continue to dance around Woojin's feet as he prepares to launch another attack. This magic buff is exactly what he needed to outmaneuver a beast this fast and powerful. He decides it's much easier to move without others getting in his way. Our boy leaps back into the fray, his movements now a blur of speed and precision thanks to Claire. Woojin starts analyzing the beast's patterns, knowing every monster has a fatal flaw. To hunt a mad skull, he just needs to exploit its simple, predictable biological behavior during the charge. Even with that scary name, this thing is ultimately just a giant pig. It can run fast in a straight line, but its massive size makes it a total nightmare at turning. The beast charges wildly, crashing into the walls as it tries to keep up with Woojin's new speed. It's a powerhouse, but it lacks the agility to handle sharp, sudden turns. Our boy plans to use the monster's own momentum against it to stop it in its tracks. He moves with grace, leading the mad skull exactly where he wants it to go. The ground shatters as the beast slams into a massive stone pillar, unable to stop its own charge. Rocks fly everywhere as the impact sends tremors through the entire ruin. Just as he predicted, the mad skull's hoof slips on the uneven ground during its frantic rush. This small stumble is the exact opening Woojin has been waiting for this whole time. The massive creature loses its footing completely and goes sliding across the floor. It lets out a pained squeal as its heavy body crashes down, leaving it vulnerable for a strike. Woojin is feeling way lighter than expected thanks to that magic buff. He figures it's time for the second step of his plan, aiming to finish this fight fast. This guy notices those massive tusks are basically the monster's hands, used for both offense and defense. He starts looking for a way around them to land a clean hit. Our boy realizes those tusks are way too hard to cut with a regular sword. He quickly decides to switch tactics and look for a softer spot to land a finishing blow. He targets the nose, knowing it is the ultimate weak point for a beast like this. With the magic buff making him lighter, Woojin prepares to strike with absolute precision. A massive splash of blood erupts as he lands a direct hit on the creature's snout. The mad skull lets out a pained shriek that echoes through the entire ruins. The pain only gets worse for the monster with every single move it tries to make. It is becoming way too burdened to keep up its aggressive assault against our boy. Woojin moves like a ghost, his body surrounded by those glowing white feathers from Claire's spell. This guy is completely focused, closing in to end this life-or-death struggle once and for all. Multiple strikes land in rapid succession, tearing through the beast's thick hide and drawing more blood. The Mad Skull is starting to falter under the pressure of Woojin's relentless tactical assault. This monster won't be getting another chance to attack after taking such a brutal beating. Our boy stands ready, his blade dripping with blood as he finishes the job in style. A dark, satisfied grin spreads across his face as he looks at the fallen beast. Woojin's red eyes glow with a primal intensity, showing he has fully embraced the thrill of the hunt. Meanwhile, Jonathan and Claire come charging into the area to see what all the noise was about. They look pretty worried, hoping they aren't too late to help their new teammate. They stop dead in their tracks when they see the absolute destruction left behind in the ruins. Jonathan wonders what happened while Claire just wants to find Woojin immediately. Claire gasps as something catches her eye, her expression shifting to pure shock. Behind her, the captain looks just as confused by what they have stumbled upon in this silent, bloody place. Turns out, Mutt was standing guard the whole time, looking more like a terrifying predator than a pet. The red wolf growls deeply, warning anyone not to get any closer. The sight of the massive wolf sends a chill down their spines, making them both freeze up. They have never seen a creature like this act so protective over a human before. Mutt lets out a thunderous roar, basically telling the mercenaries to stay back and not interfere. Claire is completely baffled, wondering if the beast is actually trying to communicate with them. The red wolf sits down firmly between the newcomers and his master, acting as an immovable shield. Woojin's silhouette appears in the distance, walking toward them through the clearing dust. Our boy finally shows up, but his mouth is smeared with blood. He secretly admits to himself that he just couldn't resist devouring the monster's delicious essence. Meanwhile, the others are busy fussing over him, asking if he's okay and what happened to the beast. He calmly tells the group that there isn't any mad skull left for them to worry about. Jonathan and Claire just stare at him, completely lost for words by his casual attitude. Behind him, Mutt starts sniffing around the massive carcass of the fallen beast. All that is left of the terrifying monster now is a pile of meat and a lot of blood. The mercenaries are absolutely blown away that he managed to take down a mad skull all by himself. Nobody has ever heard of a hunter pulling off a solo kill like that. Suddenly, Mutt perks up and starts sniffing the air again with a very serious expression. He lets out a small whine, sensing that the danger might not be over just yet. The red wolf begins to growl at the dark entrance of a nearby tunnel. Jonathan looks over, his hand tightening on his weapon as he senses the shift in the atmosphere. Another mad skull slowly emerges from the shadows, its red eyes glowing with pure hunger. It looks like Woojin's solo victory just attracted a second, equally dangerous monster to the party. The new beast snarls, showing off rows of razor-sharp teeth and those massive, deadly tusks. It looks even more aggressive than the first one, clearly ready to avenge its fallen kin. Jonathan finally snaps out of his shock and shouts for everyone to gear up. Turns out another one was hiding in the shadows, and they're in for a round two. Wait, Claire sees something off and tells everyone to hold their fire. She stares at the beast, sensing that this particular mad skull is way different from the one they just killed. A second mad skull appears, but it has two tiny piglets with it. The group is shocked by the sudden appearance of the monster family right in front of them. The piglets let out small squeals as they stand beside their mother. They look surprisingly harmless compared to the massive beast our boy just took down a few minutes ago. The mother mad skull growls, her red eyes fixed on the intruders. She is clearly on edge, ready to protect her young at any cost if a fight breaks out. Woojin stands calmly with Mutt by his side, watching the scene unfold. He doesn't seem interested in attacking the beast, sensing there is no need for any more violence today. The mother beast and her piglets begin to turn away, moving deeper into the ruins. It seems they were just looking for a safe place to raise their young together. The mercenaries watch in disbelief as the monster family leaves peacefully. Jonathan and Claire are surprised that Woojin is just letting them go without trying to finish them off. Jonathan notes that the beast was probably just trying to raise its young here. Claire looks a bit sympathetic, feeling bad for the creatures now that the tension has gone. Woojin looks away, admitting he is glad the situation resolved itself without more bloodshed. He seems more relaxed now that the immediate threat has finally passed for good. The group eventually arrives at the bustling 5th pioneer city under the full moon. It is a massive medieval town, filled with life and light compared to the dark ruins. They head straight for a local tavern to celebrate their successful mission. The warm glow from the windows promises a well-deserved break after such an intense day of monster hunting. Inside, Jonathan raises his voice to congratulate everyone on a job well done. He is thrilled that nobody got seriously injured while taking down such a dangerous mad skull beast. The captain announces it is finally settlement time, which is always the best part of any hunt. He is in a great mood, clearly excited about the reward money. The rest of the mercenary crew cheers loudly, ready to dig into the food and drink. They are clearly a tight-knit group that knows how to enjoy a victory. Claire looks confused when she sees the piles of gold on the table. She remembers the original reward being much smaller than what Jonathan is showing them right now. Jonathan laughs, explaining that the extra gold is all thanks to him making a huge fuss with the client. He definitely knows how to negotiate for a better payout. He reveals he lied, claiming there were 2 mad skulls and even piglets to deal with. Since the job seemed more dangerous, he demanded a much bigger reward coin. The total payout came to a whopping 110 gold coins. The mercenaries cheer for their captain, impressed by his cunning and ability to extort more money. Woojin asks how he still got the money since they didn't actually fight the mother. Jonathan just gives him a knowing look, ready to explain his little scheme further. This guy admits he told a little white lie to the client to secure the bag. In his world, a lie becomes the truth if you don't get caught. The mercenaries laugh along with him, giving thumbs up for the successful scam. They don't seem to mind the dishonesty as long as it benefits the whole crew directly. Woojin watches them, thinking these people are actually quite interesting. He is starting to see a different side to these mercenaries than he initially expected after joining them. Jonathan suddenly claps a hand on our boy's shoulder, getting his attention for something important. He seems to have a very high opinion of the newcomer's impressive combat skills. The captain shocks everyone by offering to give half of the entire earnings to Woojin. He asks the crew if anyone has a problem with such a massive split. Woojin stares at the gold, totally stunned. He fully expected these guys to rip him off, but they're actually being incredibly fair with the split for once. Jonathan doesn't budge, telling him they'd all be dead meat without his help. He wants our boy to take the reward and feel good about it as a sign of respect. The captain explains that since the base reward went up, there is plenty for everyone to split. He insists this generous offer is exactly what the whole crew wants for their teammate. The other mercenaries laugh and give thumbs up, clearly happy with the arrangement. They have really warmed up to our boy after seeing him handle that massive beast all by himself today. Woojin scratches his cheek, secretly admitting to himself that their buffs and traps were actually a huge help. He is starting to realize that teamwork might not be such a bad thing. He looks down at his drink, finally starting to believe that maybe not everyone in this harsh world is out to get him. It is a nice change of pace for him. To show his gratitude, our boy offers to pay for all the drinks tonight. The tavern erupts in cheers as the mercenaries realize he definitely knows how to spend his hard-earned money. Everyone starts chugging their ale and celebrating like there is no tomorrow. They are all planning to get completely wasted tonight to wash away the stress of their dangerous mission together. In the middle of the chaos, Woojin notices Claire quietly getting up to leave the table. He wonders where she could be going while everyone else is busy partying their heads off. She tells him she is just headed out to practice some magic before calling it a night. Claire always seems to be focused on improving her skills, even during a celebration party. Our boy stares after her, surprised that she would want to do more work right after such a long hunt. Her dedication to her craft is definitely something he can truly respect. Later that night, Claire sits peacefully on a hill under the glow of a massive full moon. She is surrounded by a beautiful aura of blue mana as she begins her meditation. Her eyes are closed as she focuses on the flow of energy throughout her entire body. It is a quiet, magical scene that contrasts sharply with the rowdy atmosphere back at the tavern. Woojin watches from the shadows, thinking she must be incredibly tired but still keeps going. He is truly impressed that she would dedicate her free time to training right after a hunt. He keeps staring at the glowing blue energy, the word magic echoing through his mind. He has always relied on physical strength, but this new power seems incredibly useful and versatile. Our boy wonders if he should try learning magic himself to become an even more efficient hunter. Seeing Claire's power in action has definitely sparked a new ambition deep inside of him. Jin catches Claire off guard by asking her to teach him magic. To his surprise, she agrees instantly, looking much more enthusiastic than he ever expected she would be. Claire puts down a heavy crate, admitting she'd been looking for a way to thank him anyway. Jin is a bit stunned by how quickly his plan is actually working. She recalls the terrifying moment the mad skull charged at them. Unlike others who might have run, Jin saved her life, making her more than happy to share her knowledge. Jonathan distroke letter 1E9NG Quan Sot, T letter 1EB M letter 1ED9T Bairn. Co V letter 1EBB R letter 1EA5T letter 1EA5N T letter 1B0 letter 1EE3 and GV letter 1EDB. I Than Niern C letter 1EE7 a Chung Ta. H letter 1EFN and H letter 1EDN TH letter 1EA5 Y Jin Kong GI letter 1ED1. NG Lulin Don Thair Thong TH letter 1B0 letter 1EDDNG. NH letter 1EFNG K letter 1EBB CH letter 1EC9B I letter 1EBF T Cham Cham B letter 1EA3 OV letter 1EC7 Chi M letter 1E1 and GC letter 1EE7 Amin TR letter 1B0 letter 1EDB C Tiern. The captain steps in, warning that magic isn't something anyone can just master overnight. Plus, the group is scheduled to leave the village in just 2 days to stay on track. Jonathan has a simple solution and suggests that Jin should just travel with them. He wonders why a hunter this powerful would even want to tag along with their group. He claps a hand on Jin's shoulder, calling him a brave wolf who probably prefers being alone. It's clear the mercenaries have a high level of respect for his skills. Jin looks a bit deadpan, thinking that Jonathan is making him act all dignified for no reason. He just wants the lessons, but he'll play the part for now. Deciding to lie a little, Jin asks where their next destination is supposed to be. Jonathan reveals they're headed to the 4th Pioneer City for a very lucrative new job. Our boy acts like it's a total coincidence, claiming he was already planning on heading that way. He asks if they would mind him joining their caravan for the trip. Jonathan and Claire share a look, knowing full well he's a terrible liar. They realize he totally took the bait, but they're just happy to have him on board. Jonathan laughs heartily, calling it a great coincidence while pulling Jin into a rough hug. Both of them are thrilled to have such a reliable and strong ally joining them. Jin gives a small, knowing smirk as he turns away from the group. His next destination is officially decided, and he's one step closer to uncovering the secrets of magic. The group sets out across the wilderness, but they aren't using normal horses. They're riding on the back of a colossal, armored creature that towers over the trees around them. This massive beast is called a Tarask, a monster specifically bred for heavy transportation. It's one of the few magic creatures that humanity has actually managed to successfully domesticate. Jin stares up at the giant porter, absolutely floored by its sheer size. He realizes that in this world, these monsters are the standard way to move heavy goods across distances. Jonathan waves the group forward, eager to get a move on since they have a long way to go. The journey to the 4th Pioneer City is officially underway. That night, Jin sits in quiet meditation under the glow of a massive full moon. He quickly learns that trying to master something completely new is a genuinely difficult task. He reflects on why learning feels so hard, realizing the worst part is the constant repetition. He's drenched in sweat, but he refuses to give up on sensing the mana. Claire demonstrates a small orb of light, explaining that growth in magic is a very slow process. Jin watches closely, trying to grasp the feeling of the energy around them. Our boy grinds his teeth, feeling the frustration of hitting a plateau so early on. Repeating the same mental exercises over and over is an agonizing experience for any normal person. However, this is a specific kind of pain that Jin knows all too well. He thinks back to his time traveling with Claire, realizing his past has prepared him for this. His mind drifts back to the 12 years of pure agony he endured in the Magion. Surviving that nightmare world required a level of mental fortitude most people can't imagine. Jin's years in that hellhole definitely made him much tougher than your average hunter. Sitting alone in the dark forest, he's focusing every bit of his willpower on one single goal. Suddenly, a tiny blue spark flickers right in front of him. After days of absolute nothing, Jin finally feels it, The mana in the air is actually starting to respond. Jin watches the blue spark, finally sensing the mana after 10 days of struggle. He's no stranger to the grind, having endured much worse during his years of survival. Claire claps her hands, thrilled that he's actually starting to feel the magic. Jin looks exhausted but relieved, finally understanding the true nature of the energy he's been hunting. Our boy can't believe it took him 10 whole days just to get this far. It's a stark reminder that learning magic in this world is an incredibly difficult uphill battle. Claire admits he's actually a lot on the slow side when it comes to talent. However, she quickly encourages him, noting that most people never sense mana in their entire lives. Now that the first hurdle is cleared, she reaches into her bag for the next step. It's time to move beyond just sensing mana and start actually containing it inside. She carefully pours a glowing, light blue liquid into a small silver basin. This special elixir is a key component for the ritual they're about to perform under the moonlight. With a completely straight face, Claire tells Jin to take his clothes off. She's busy putting on her gloves, totally focused on the technical part of the upcoming magic infusion. Jin is caught completely off guard, his eyes widening in pure shock and confusion. He definitely wasn't expecting this kind of development during his very first magic lesson in the forest. The scene shifts to the deep forest at night, illuminated only by a massive, glowing full moon. It's the perfect, quiet setting for a delicate and potentially dangerous magic ritual. Claire dips her fingers into the cool, glowing liquid she prepared earlier. This special substance will act as the medium to draw the magic circle directly onto Jin's bare skin. As Claire draws the magic circle, she notices the deep, jagged scars covering Jin's muscular back. These old wounds tell a silent story of the many brutal battles he's already fought. The ritual setup is finally complete, and the glowing pattern looks pretty sick. Claire warns him to focus and feel the energy carefully as she prepares to inject the magic. Jin settles into a deep meditation, closing his eyes to block out all distractions. He knows this next part is critical, so he sharpens his focus for the coming infusion. Claire places her hand near the magic circle, and the air starts to hum with power. The ritual begins in earnest, and the forest around them suddenly feels heavy with energy. Blue light erupts as the mana begins to flood into Jin's body through the path. He can feel the raw power surging through him, unlike anything he've ever experienced before. The entire campsite is bathed in a brilliant blue glow as the ritual reaches its peak. Jin grits his teeth, realizing this level of power is way beyond his initial expectations. Deep within his body, our boy feels a thick, surging energy that feels even heavier than blood. The mana is actively carving out its own path through his physical form. Claire asks if he can feel the mana moving, and Jin confirms it's definitely there. The sensation is intense, but he's holding it together much better than most beginners would. She explains that he's just taken the very first step toward becoming a real mage. According to her, there are 3 main stages to mastering the basics of magic use. Sensing mana was the start, but containing it inside is the real challenge. The final stage is actually utilizing that stored energy to manifest powerful spells in the real world. Since he's handled the infusion so well, Claire decides they should move straight to the second stage. This involves her guiding the mana even deeper into his physical core. Her instructions are simple. He must control the flowing energy and direct it toward his heart. It's like holding his breath, but with raw magical power instead of air inside. Jin is sweating and clearly struggling to keep the massive amount of mana under control. He's preparing his body to act as a vessel, storing the energy within himself. The magic is going wild now, and the pressure is blowing leaves everywhere. Claire is totally locked in, pushing the energy to the limit so she can finish the job. The magic circle on Jin's back starts glowing like crazy as the path finally locks in. He's gritting his teeth through the pain, but the world around them is about to vanish. Claire's mind is suddenly plunged into a terrifying dark void. A colossal, mantis-like beast looms over her, its presence feeling more like a nightmare than anything human. The creature is absolutely massive, its green body covered in jagged spikes. It looks down at her with a predatory hunger that makes her entire soul shiver in fear. Multiple glowing red eyes blink from the monster's face, staring right through her. This isn't just a simple manifestation. It's something far more ancient and dangerous living inside him. Her consciousness starts to flicker as she feels a cold, heavy energy wrapping around her. She realizes with a jolt of pure horror that Jin's mental world is fundamentally wrong. Swirls of blue mana whip around her like a storm as the connection begins to fail. She's caught in a mental whirlpool, struggling to pull herself back to the real world. Back in the forest, the ritual has turned into a chaotic mess of energy. Claire stares at Jin in disbelief, her body trembling from the terrifying glimpse she just had. She gasps for air, feeling her own magical reserves being violently sucked out. At this rate, he's going to drain every last drop of mana from her entire body. Despite her desperate efforts, she still can't escape this perilous situation. Suddenly, a wolf's tail sweeps in from behind, wrapping around her and pulling her back. Suddenly, Mutt steps out from the shadows, his blue eyes glowing with intense power. The massive red wolf lifts her up, acting as a silent and powerful guardian for both her and Jin. Claire stands frozen, wondering where this new creature could have come from so suddenly. She has never seen anything like Mutt, a beast capable of saving her during a magic ritual like that. Mutt stares her down, his presence both regal and terrifying at the same time. He doesn't attack, but his protective stance over Jin makes it clear he's not just some animal. Sweating and terrified, she wonders if Mutt actually realized she was in danger. Did the wolf step out from the shadows just to save her from being completely consumed by Jin? Jin looks over his shoulder, seeing her collapsed on the ground in a state of shock. He seems completely unaware of the mental horror she just experienced inside him. Our boy asks if she's all right, his voice calm despite the chaotic energy still fatting away. He has no idea that she just saw the monster hiding in his soul. Claire can barely find her words, realizing she just witnessed a glimpse of his mental world. It's a space that supposedly reveals a person's true power and inner disposition. She explains that everyone possesses a unique mental realm based on their life experiences. Usually, they're peaceful places, but what she saw in Jin was an absolute nightmare. Those countless red eyes flash in her memory, haunting her with their cold, empty gaze. She's never felt such an ominous and predatory presence within a human being before. Looking at Jin now, she sees the shadowy outline of that gargantuan mantis monster still looming behind him. The contrast between his calm face and that beast is terrifying. Claire stands up, her expression turning deadly serious as she confronts him directly. She needs the truth, begging him to finally be honest about what's really going on. She asks the one question that's been burning in her mind since the ritual failed. Did he, by any chance, actually consume a forbidden mana core at some point? Jin blinks, looking slightly confused by her sudden intensity and the strange question. He doesn't seem to realize that eating those cores is considered a total death sentence. Her question is about the crystalline essences found deep inside the bodies of monsters. Jin casually admits that yes, he has definitely eaten those things before. Claire nearly loses it, screaming in shock that he actually survived eating a core. She frantically asks when he started doing it and exactly how many he's consumed. Jin casually drops a bombshell, revealing he's been snacking on these things for 10 straight years. By his math, he's probably gulped down tens of thousands of cores by now. Our boy is totally clueless about why she's panicking, asking if there's actually a problem. Claire snaps back, yelling that problem doesn't even begin to cover his insanity. Claire's voice trembles as she begins to explain the horrific reality of his situation. In this world, the consequences of a human consuming even a single mana core are absolute. She stares at him with wide, terrified eyes, delivering the ultimate death sentence. Normal people either die instantly from the sheer power or eventually mutate into a mindless, rampaging monster. Jin stands tall under the glowing full moon, his eyes flashing a sharp, predatory red. While Claire fears for his soul, he remains focused on the incredible power he's finally mastered. In the demonic realm, there's a turbid energy known as karma or retribution. It's the source of the mutations plaguing this world. Any living being that absorbs this energy undergoes a terrifying transformation, gaining bizarre and dangerous abilities. At the center of these mutations is a monster core, a concentrated nucleus of accumulated karma pooling within the beast. Jin and his companions continue their trek through the forest. Claire remains deep in thought, clearly bothered by something Jin told her. She can't help but think about the Dark Priests, a group of fanatics that worship the very monsters they should be hunting. Ever since the gate opened and karma began to consume the world, these cultists have been a plague of their own. These madmen didn't just worship the beasts. They saw them as angels and even began consuming monster cores to become like them. Their devotion went as far as sacrificing other humans to the monsters, fully embracing the role of the demented. But Jin's confession is what's really rattling Claire. He's been eating these cores for 10 years, tens of thousands of them by his count. Staring at the multi-eyed surface of a core is enough to make anyone's skin crawl. They are concentrated poison to most humans. Claire wonders if Jin could actually be a dark priest. She quickly dismisses it, though. No cultist would ever be this open about it or show her their mental world. As Jin casually dismantles a monster, she wonders if he simply had no idea how dangerous the cores were when he started. He holds up a fresh core, looking at it like it's nothing more than a midday snack. Claire watches with a pained expression as Jin starts chewing. She can't wrap her head around why anyone would eat something so repulsive. Jin actually picked up the habit by watching other monsters do it. To Claire, he's becoming more of a mystery with every bite. She warns him that he's only been lucky so far. If he doesn't stop, the cores will eventually turn him into a monster or just flat-out kill him. Jin keeps his thoughts to himself. He knows he's a living contradiction to everything she's saying, which makes him question if her information is even correct. Still, he can't ignore the side effects. He felt absolutely nothing after his recent kills, and the urge to fight is becoming harder to ignore. For a brief second, his eye flashes a sinister red. The cores are definitely changing him, whether he wants to admit it or not. When he gives a half-hearted, "I'll try to stop," Claire isn't having it. She demands he quit right now, no excuses. She drops a bombshell. If he keeps eating them, he won't just lose his life. He'll lose the ability to use magic entirely. Jin actually looks worried for a second, but not about dying. Claire is floored that he cares more about his magic than his own survival. She sighs, explaining that mana manifestation is likely out of reach for him in his current state. However, all isn't lost. She mentions that he should still be able to use mana arts, which are a bit different. The term catches Jin's attention. It's exactly the kind of edge he's looking for in this world. The group finally arrives at the 4th Pioneer City, a massive hub built to withstand the horrors of the demonic realm. The city square is packed. Mercenaries and hunters from all over have gathered, creating a loud, chaotic atmosphere. Jin is surprised by the sheer number of mercenaries. Claire tells him to save his shock for what's actually drawing them here. The crowd parts as a figure of authority approaches. This operation isn't just big, it's being personally overseen by a Holy Knight. Holy Knight Raymond walks through the square with an air of absolute authority. His presence alone is enough to silence the rowdy mercenaries. Jin watches him pass, sensing a weight to the knight's presence that he hasn't encountered before. Raymond's aura is intense, sharp, and refined. Jin realizes instantly that this man is on a completely different level than any ordinary human. Jin asks if this many people always show up for a holy knight. Claire explains it's the name attached to the job, the golden bug, wolf. Jin innocently asks if the golden bug is some kind of insect monster. Claire can't believe he's serious. Claire just shakes his head. He's starting to realize that outside of hunting, Jin is completely clueless about the world's most famous people. Jonathan explains that the golden bug was the world's greatest businessman, a tycoon with enough assets to be considered one of the richest men alive. But the legend came to an end recently when he died quite suddenly. Jin asks if he was assassinated, but Jonathan tells him those are just rumors. No one knows the truth for sure. The tycoon left behind 2 sons, and that's where the mercenaries come in. Someone has to move the sons and their massive inheritance behind the safety of the city's inner barrier. It's a high-stakes escort mission involving a literal fortune. Protecting the heirs and their legacy is the biggest request in town. Jin finally gets it. With that much money on the line, it's no wonder every mercenary in the city is trying to get a piece of the action. The clerk calls for the Black Marlin mercenary group. It's finally time for Jonathan's team to step up and claim their spot in the mission. Jonathan is practically vibrating with excitement. He grabs Jin, dragging him toward the registration desk for what he calls the most important moment. At the desk, Jonathan starts laying it on thick, introducing Jin as their group's ultimate weapon. He hypes him up as the man who took down a mad skull and tamed a werewolf single-handedly. The crowd starts whispering, recognizing the nickname Head Crusher. Looking at Jin's slender frame, many of the other mercenaries are skeptical that he's as strong as the rumors say. Jin is completely blindsided by the ridiculous title. Jonathan just gives him a cheeky grin, telling him to just play along for a bit so they can land the job. Up on the balcony, Raymond watches the exchange with those piercing blue eyes. He doesn't say a word, but he's clearly paying attention to the newcomer. The deal is set. 100 gold coins to move luggage, with departure scheduled for sunrise tomorrow. It's a massive payout for what sounds like simple labor. Jonathan is pumped up, ready to get moving. Jin, however, is stunned that anyone would pay that much just to have some boxes move. Jonathan explains the economics of the mercenary world. In this field, you're paid half for the actual work and half for the name value you bring to the table. Jin is still hung up on the nickname and asks what head crusher is even supposed to mean. Jonathan explains it's all about the reputation he's already built. It's exactly what it sounds like. A name given to someone who has a habit of brutally finishing off monsters by crushing their skulls. Jin just sighs, looking thoroughly unimpressed. He's convinced that whoever came up with that name has the absolute worst taste. As the mercenaries celebrate their jackpot rate, Jin's mind is elsewhere. He figures this level of fame is exactly what he needs to get close to the Holy Knights. He catches a glimpse of Raymond and his apprentice at their post. If he can draw their interest, he might finally have a shot at learning mana arts. Later that night at the mercenary quarters, the city is quiet, but Jin's plan is already in motion. The scene shifts to the local arena, a place where blood and coin flow freely. The crowd is roaring, thirsting for another brutal match. Inside the ring, two fighters are tearing into each other. It's a lawless, violent spectacle designed to entertain the masses. Jin stands backstage, methodically wrapping his hands. Claire is visibly worried about him throwing himself into this meat grinder, but Jin knows exactly why he's here. He tells her not to worry. This is all part of the plan to draw the attention of the Holy Knights so he can secure a way to learn their techniques. He's betting on the fact that these knights are naturally drawn to anyone who shows exceptional strength. If he can make someone as powerful as Raymond acknowledge him, he'll be in a perfect position to negotiate for better treatment. Jin steps out into the arena, looking calm despite the massive opponent waiting for him. To him, this isn't a challenge, it's a performance. He locks eyes with his opponent, his mind focused entirely on the Holy Knight watching from above. Everything rides on this display of power. The fight begins with a blur of motion. Jin's opponent lunges forward, but he's already reading every move. A massive fist whistles past Jin's head. He dodges with inches to spare, completely unfazed by the aggression. He counters with a devastating punch that sends teeth and blood flying. The arena echoes with the sound of the impact. Before his opponent can recover, Jin grabs him by the head, showing exactly why he earned that brutal nickname. He delivers a crushing knee strike that folds the man like a lawn chair. It's efficient, cold, and utterly dominant. The crowd erupts as Jin stands over his fallen foe. Another mercenary jumps into the ring, screaming that he's the next opponent. Jin looks up toward the balcony and sees Raymond watching him while casually taking a drink. The bait has been taken. Jin lands another heavy strike on his new challenger. He knows just getting attention isn't enough. He needs to make a lasting impression. He delivers a high kick that catches another fighter right in the temple. To make a Holy Knight take him seriously, he needs to mow through everyone they throw at him. Another knee connects, and another body hits the dirt. Jin is turning the arena into a one-man highlights reel. Up on the balcony, Raymond's expression remains stoic, but his interest is piqued. He's clearly wondering where a mere mercenary learned to fight like this. Jin stands alone in the center of the ring, surrounded by the groaning bodies of his victims. The cheers of the crowd are deafening. He knows that once he's beaten enough of these guys, the knight won't be able to ignore him anymore. Raymond finally turns to his apprentice, Rex, and gives him a simple order. Go down there and fight that man. Rex looks absolutely insulted by the command. He's an apprentice knight, and the idea of lowering himself to fight a common mercenary is clearly beneath him. Jin watches them from the arena floor, a slight smirk playing on his lips. This is the moment he's been waiting for, the real start of his mission. Just as Rex prepares to step into the ring, Jin drops a bombshell. I refuse. It's the ultimate power move to kick off his negotiations for mana arts. Rex is frozen in shock, his face contorting with rage. No commoner has ever had the guts to say no to a knight's challenge. Kim Woojin stands before the elite knights, his expression unreadable. He knows this is the pivotal moment where his real plan to infiltrate their ranks begins. I refuse, he says flatly, cutting off their offer and stunning everyone watching. He isn't interested in just any fight, he wants terms that suit him. Raymond is taken aback, his brow furrowing as he stares down the bold mercenary. It's rare for anyone to turn down a chance to engage with the order. The scene shifts to the mercenary dormitory as night falls over the busy pioneer city. Claire is watching the proceedings with a look of pure anxiety, clearly worried about what her companion is getting himself into. Jonathan looks just as stunned, unable to wrap his head around Jin's reckless behavior in front of such powerful figures. In the arena, a confused murmur ripples through the crowd. They can't understand why the head crusher would pass up such a prestigious challenge. Rex isn't taking the rejection well at all, screaming at Jin to explain himself. He feels insulted that a common mercenary would turn his nose up at him. While the apprentice loses his cool, Raymond remains perfectly calm, his eyes fixed intently on Jin as if trying to read his soul. The Holy Knight steps forward, wondering if Jin is declining because he sustained an injury during his previous matches. Jin just gives a casual wave of his bandaged hand, assuring them that he's in peak condition. Physical pain isn't what's holding him back. Raymond presses him further, wanting to know why he'd turn down a duel if he's not hurt. He doesn't like being left in the dark. Jin lays it out plain, he's a mercenary. He doesn't move for honor or glory, he moves for money and power. Since he's being asked to fight a Holy Knight's apprentice, he expects to be compensated. He proposes a bet to make things interesting. He's not going to risk his life in a sparring match just for the hell of it. Raymond looks skeptical, questioning what a common mercenary could possibly have that a high-ranking knight would actually want. Jin admits he might not be a grand figure, but he claims to have an ungodly amount of money to back up his words. He produces a heavy sack of gold, the weight of it thudding as he holds it up for everyone to see. The crowd erupts into laughter, calling him a crazy bastard for trying to gamble with a holy knight who lives by a strict code of honor. They think he's completely out of his depth. Rex is fuming at the perceived disrespect, his teeth clenched as he glares at the man trying to buy his way into a fight. Raymond places a hand on his apprentice's shoulder to steady him, telling Jin that they have no need for his gold coins. Instead, the knight has a different idea for the stakes of the match. He's ready to play Jin's game, but on his own terms. He suggests they both agree to waive all liability for any damages or injuries sustained during the fight. No settlements, no legal fallout, just a raw test of strength. For Raymond, this is a much more appropriate agreement for a duel between warriors. Jin is thrilled internally. With no liability, he doesn't have to hold back. He can beat the kid to his heart's content without having to pay a single cent in compensation. With a confident grin, Jin accepts the terms. He tells them he'll name his price once the duel is over and Rex is on the ground. The two combatants take their positions in the arena, the tension in the air becoming thick enough to cut with a knife. Rex is locked in, his eyes burning with a cold fury. He's determined to make this mercenary pay for his arrogance. Jin narrows his eyes, focusing all his senses on his opponent. The playful mercenary act is gone, replaced by a cold-blooded survivor. The spectators are going wild, some even betting their entire fortunes on the head crusher to pull off an upset against the knight. Claire warns him to give a signal if things get too dangerous, but Jin just tells her not to sweat it. He's got this under control. "I'll win," he says, his voice flat and full of certainty. He hasn't survived 12 years in hell just to lose to an apprentice. Rex asks his master how far he should go, and Raymond tells him to give it everything. He knows Jin isn't going to be an easy opponent. Raymond watches from the stands, acknowledging that this won't be a simple victory for his student. Rex accepts the order and starts channeling his power, golden energy beginning to swirl around him. The crowd gasps as they witness the legendary mana arts in action, cheering for the Holy Knight's inevitable victory. With a heavy thud, Rex plants his foot, the sheer pressure of his mana causing the arena floor to crack and buckle. In a flash of golden light, Rex lunges forward with explosive speed, a blur that most eyes can't even track. Jin tracks the movement, realizing that this kid is in a completely different league than the thugs he's used to crushing. This is the real deal. A refined and powerful strike comes whistling through the air, forcing Jin onto the defensive as he barely manages to avoid a direct hit. Jin takes a glancing blow, blood spraying from his mouth as he feels the raw impact. He realizes that a clean hit from a technique like this could actually be fatal. He finds the whole situation fascinating, his eyes wide as he experiences the power of the mana arts firsthand. Instead of backing off, he's getting excited. He narrowly dodges the next follow-up, his senses on high alert. This isn't just a fight anymore, it's a study in a power he desperately needs to master. Rex lunges forward, his fist glowing with golden mana as he puts everything into his opening move. He's determined to show this mercenary the difference between their classes. A massive impact sends sparks of energy flying across the arena floor. The force of the strike is enough to kick up a cloud of dust, making it look like the fight is already over. Jin is knocked back, but he lands on his feet with cat-like grace. He casually wipes a smudge of blood from his chin, looking more bored than injured as he assesses the damage. Rex isn't finished with his taunting, calling Jin a wild beast who doesn't understand the true power of a holy knight. He's clearly offended that a mercenary has managed to stand back up. The arena crowd is in an absolute uproar, stunned to see the head crusher being pushed back. Jonathan and Claire watch from the sidelines, their expressions tense as they realize the apprentice is on a different level. Claire clenches her jaw, her eyes fixed on Jin as she silently prays for him to stay safe. She knows how dangerous these knights can be once they get serious. Raymond watches the duel silently, his expression unreadable as he takes in every movement. He's not just watching the fight, he's dissecting it. Rex continues his assault, golden arcs of mana trailing behind every punch. He's trying to overwhelm Jin with sheer speed and magical force. Jin raises his bandaged arm to block a blow that would have shattered a normal man's ribs. He doesn't even flinch at the impact, his eyes focused entirely on his opponent's technique. Raymond narrows his eyes, sensing that something about the mercenary's rhythm is fundamentally off. He feels an uneasy weight in the pit of his stomach. He recalled how Jin had ruthlessly crushed every previous opponent with a single blow. Compared to that raw dominance, his current defensive stance felt like he was intentionally pulling his punches. The knight realizes that Jin's movements are extremely passive right now. It's almost as if he's not even trying to fight back, but is instead waiting for something specific. Rex screams in exertion, pouring the last of his energy into a final, decisive strike. He wants to end this mockery once and for all. He throws a massive mana-charged punch that glows like a miniature star. The air around his fist ripples from the sheer intensity of the power. Jin is caught in the epicenter of the blast, dust and debris flying everywhere as the ground cracks beneath him. To the spectators, it looks like a direct hit. But as the dust clears, the impossible is revealed. Jin is standing perfectly fine. He didn't even dodge. He seemingly caught or deflected the attack with his bare hand. Jonathan stands up in the stands, his face pale with shock as he asks if it's even possible for a human to do that. He's never seen anything like it. Rex freezes, the absolute terror of the situation finally starting to dawn on him as he realizes his best move did nothing. His confidence evaporates in an instant. Jin stands there calmly, more blood trickling from his chin, but with a look of pure satisfaction in his eyes. He has seen everything he needed to see. He tells Rex that he's officially done measuring his combat power. The playfulness is gone, replaced by a cold, predatory aura. He clenches his fist, the casual atmosphere of the arena vanishing as he prepares to settle the score. He's done being the target. Before Rex can even blink, Jin closes the distance and delivers a single, crushing blow to the apprentice's chest. The impact is so heavy it creates a shockwave. Rex gasps for air, his eyes bulging as the wind is completely knocked out of him. He's never felt a physical force this overwhelming in his life. Raymond is stunned from the sidelines, realizing that a normal, unenhanced punch just did that to his student. He's starting to realize what kind of monster he's dealing with. Rex collapses to his knees, coughing violently as he struggles just to stay upright. His golden mana shield is gone, shattered by that one hit. Jin looks down at him with a dark, satisfied smirk, nodding that the Holy Knight wasn't nearly as tough as he let on. He's clearly savoring the victory. He stands over his fallen opponent, looking entirely refreshed despite the hits he took earlier. He realized that the kid only survived that last hit because of the mana protection lingering in his body. Rex is struggling to stay conscious, saliva and blood dripping from his chin as he looks up at Jin in pure terror. The power gap is finally clear to everyone. Jin steps closer, cracking his knuckles and asking just how many more hits like that the boy can endure. He's ready to keep going until there's nothing left. Suddenly, a white cloak flutters into the frame as Raymond steps between them, ending the duel before it turns into a massacre. Raymond puts a stop to the match, declaring it Rex's loss. He knows if the fight continues, his apprentice won't survive another minute. He looks Jin in the eye and promises to grant the request he asked for earlier as the victor. He's keeping his word, even if his pride is wounded. Jin just sighs, looking slightly annoyed that the fight was cut short just when he was starting to enjoy himself. He was looking forward to testing more of those mana arts. Still, a small smile creeps onto his face as he realizes his plan was a success. He has the attention of the Order Alliance now, exactly as he wanted. The arena crowd goes absolutely wild, chanting the name of the head crusher as he walks off the stage. They've just seen a legend in the making. The scene shifts across the city to the massive, Gothic estate of the late tycoon, Golden Bug Wolf. It's a mansion that screams of old money and dark secrets. Inside, the sound of messy, animalistic gorging fills the room. Someone is eating with a desperation that borders on the grotesque. It's revealed to be Derek and Cedric, the two sons of the Golden Bug. They are stuffing their faces with mountains of food as if they haven't eaten in weeks. They complain through mouthfuls of food about the Order Alliance taking 10 days to get them behind the inner city walls. To them, the knights are nothing but overpriced bastards. One son scoffs, calling the knights all talk and no substance, despite the massive fortune they've been paid for protection. His arrogance is as thick as the grease on his face. They stop eating for a moment, wondering if their bodies will even last long enough for the evacuation to begin. There's a note of genuine fear in their voices now. As the moonlight hits them, the horrific truth is revealed. Their backs are covered in pulsating, glowing blue parasitic growths. They are slowly becoming the very monsters they fear. The clusters of blue growths pulsate with an unnatural light, each orb twitching and throbbing as if alive. Strands of dark, fibrous tissue weave between the glowing sacs, cementing their hold on the host's flesh. Raymond stands by a massive tree, beginning his explanation of mana arts. It's a fundamental skill for any warrior looking to transcend their limits. He describes it as a technique that allows one to treat mana as if it were an extension of their own body. Mastery of this allows for a massive boost in physical capabilities. Gripping the handle of his blade, a soft golden light begins to radiate from his hand. The true power depends entirely on the user's level of mastery over the energy. With a fluid motion, the Holy Knight unleashes the Holy Flame Strike. A massive arc of golden fire slices through the air, incinerating everything in its path. The echoes of that devastating display of power reverberated through the quiet morning, sending flocks of birds scattering into the sky in a frantic blur. Raymond sheathes his sword with practiced ease, his expression remaining perfectly calm. He turns back toward his students, his lesson concluded for now. Rex claps enthusiastically, his face lit up with admiration for the knight's prowess. He's clearly impressed by the effortless display of power he just witnessed. The red-haired apprentice knight can't hide his excitement as he asks how anyone could be so perfect. The silver-haired knight simply nods and tells him it's his turn to try. Rex rushes off with a wide grin, ready to give it his absolute best. He's determined to prove he can handle the basics just as well. Watching the display from a distance, Kim Woojin's mind drifted back to his own wolf. He found himself wondering if this was what a human looked like when they were truly, utterly devoted. Jin stares at the cleanly cut tree stumps, pondering the nature of mana arts. It certainly looks more refined than anything the apprentice could manage. Still, he can't help but feel a bit skeptical about the need for such flashy techniques. He wonders if a simple, sharp blade shouldn't be enough to do the same job. Sensing his distraction, Raymond calls out to him, urging him to focus and try for himself. The young man nods, stepping forward to take his place. The instructor stands behind him, guiding his posture as he prepares to draw his own weapon. He tells him to imagine his muscles tensing just like they would during a flex. Closing his eyes, the knight explains that the key is to hold the mana firmly within the muscles. It's about internalizing the energy rather than just letting it flow. Jin takes a deep breath, recalling the basic mana control Claire had once shown him. He tries to find that same familiar feeling deep within himself. Suddenly, he feels a strange spark, and a faint blue flame flickers near his cheek. It's a sign that the energy is beginning to respond to his call. A surge of mana begins to swirl around his body, catching him completely off guard. He hadn't realized he had this much energy stored up inside him. He realizes that this calm, light energy feels exactly like Claire's mana. It must have stayed with him after she helped him recover before. As he focuses harder, the blue light begins to shift and darken, taking on a strange hue. Tendrils of purple energy start to snake up around his torso. Raymond watches closely, coaching him to slowly start moving the mana through his limbs. He suggests that small movements might help him get a better feel for it. The knight's calm demeanor vanishes the moment the aura fully manifests. He stares in shock at the dark, swirling energy emanating from his student. Jin is completely enveloped in a violent, purple flame that dances around his blade. It's a far cry from the pure, golden light the knight had demonstrated. The instructor can't believe his eyes, shocked that someone could pick up the technique so instantly. But more than that, the color of the mana deeply troubles him. Purple energy crackles along the edge of the sword, looking more like a curse than a holy art. It's an ominous sight that feels heavy with a strange power. Raymond recalls the old teaching that mana arts take their form based on the user's inner world. The manifestation is a direct reflection of a person's soul. He stares at the young man, his eyes narrowed with a mix of curiosity and dread. He wonders what kind of darkness must be buried inside someone to produce such an aura. Jin doesn't seem to notice the concern, a slight smirk playing on his lips as he feels the raw power. The weight of the sword feels almost non-existent in his hands now. He begins a series of rapid practice swings, the purple light trailing behind his blade like a ghostly shadow. Each strike is faster and more precise than the last. He pauses to examine the weapon, noting that it still feels a bit inefficient despite his efforts. He figures his mastery level must still be quite low. Regardless of the efficiency, he can't deny that the glowing purple energy looks incredibly cool. He finds himself itching to test it out in a real battle soon. High above, the caravan's massive transport beasts continue their trek along the winding road. The world below seems peaceful, unaware of the power being awakened. Later, Claire catches up with him, her eyes wide with amazement at his quick progress. She's genuinely impressed that he managed to learn it so easily. Jin thanks her, admitting that it was likely because some of her mana had flowed into him before. He asks if she's doing okay after everything that happened. She blinks in surprise, her expression softening as she realizes what he means. The thought of her mana helping him seems to catch her off guard. With a cheerful laugh, she tells him not to worry about it at all. She views the energy transfer as a small gift for saving her life back then. He looks away, thinking that the amount of mana was far too much to just shrug off. He knows he owes his quick mastery to her generosity. Up ahead, Raymond remains on his horse, silently observing the pair as they talk. He seems to be lost in thought, likely still dwelling on the dark aura he saw. Rex rides up alongside them, his usual arrogant tone returning as he warns the newcomer not to slack off. He tells him he should be more grateful for the night's time. Jin stares back at him with a deadpan expression, wondering why the guy is such a pest. He figures the apprentice is probably still bitter about losing their previous spar. The red-haired boy shot him a competitive look. He knew all too well that the kid was just bored and looking to reassert his dominance. Rex punctuates his boast with a hard slap against his horse's side, riding off with a smug grin. He's determined to keep his lead, one way or another. Rex's horse suddenly reared up, startled by the unexpected shock. He gritted his teeth, struggling to maintain control as the beast whinnied in sudden panic. He gallops forward, shouting for the path to be cleared. Raymond and Jin watch him go, the knight offering a quiet apology for his subordinate's hot-headed behavior. A sudden, angry shout echoes from the direction of the main caravan. The silver-haired knight pauses, his expression shifting as he senses a dark change in the atmosphere. The sound of smashing wood and clattering supplies fills the air. Someone is screaming for food, their voice distorted by a raw, primal hunger that sounds barely human. Jin senses the growing tension and looks toward the source of the commotion. Raymond tells him not to worry, dismissively mentioning the usual antics of their high-ranking employers. Nearby, laborers continue their work loading heavy barrels onto a platform. The knight clarifies that the trouble likely stems from the Golden Bug's sons having another tantrum. He explains that ever since their father passed away, the sons have been binge-eating without rest. Their greed seems to have no limit, manifesting as a constant, frantic consumption of demonic meat. The knight advises ignoring them, saying it's better to avoid the headache of their constant demands. He looks away, clearly exhausted by their entitled nature. Jin remains skeptical, feeling that this behavior goes far beyond simple stress eating. A sense of unease settles over him as he watches the heavy carriage in the distance. A close-up shows a mouth stuffed with demonic flesh, grease and dark juices dripping down. The speed and intensity of the eating suggest something far more sinister than mere gluttony. Gray veins bulge under the skin of the eater's face as it ripples and distorts. A muffled, wet sound escapes as they continue to gorge themselves on the raw, dark essence. On his end, the protagonist couldn't shake the feeling that something monstrous was about to burst out. His gaze hardened, his hand inching closer to the hilt of his blade. His eyes widen as a massive tremor shakes the entire caravan line. A sudden, sharp sound of breaking timber cuts through the ambient noise of the morning. The lead Tarrasque rears its massive head, its eyes clouded with a sudden, violent madness. Supplies and barrels are flung into the air as the beast begins to thrash wildly. The giant turtle-like creature crashes forward, its tongue lolling out as it goes completely berserk. The heavy wooden carriage on its back is shredded from the inside like paper. Chaos erupts as guards scramble to react to the rampaging beast. Raymond stays mounted, his sharp eyes scanning the wreckage for the true source of the disturbance. He realizes the danger isn't just the berserk beast, but what's emerging from the cabin. He shouts out a warning, his voice cutting through the panic of the surrounding soldiers. The knight commands Rex to move in and secure the perimeter. The apprentice acknowledges the order immediately, drawing his sword as he maneuvers his horse toward the fray. Gold mana flares around the knight as he grips his massive blade. He prepares to intervene personally, his cape billowing in the wind created by the sudden surge of energy. He reminds his subordinate that the safety of the clients is the highest priority. If the beast can't be calmed immediately, he gives the order to put it down. Rex charges toward the thrashing Tarrasque, focused on the golden emblem of the golden bug on the cabin. He's determined to prove his worth in this sudden crisis. The wooden cabin on the beast's back is shredded from the inside by dark, pointed protrusions. Splinters fly in every direction as the entire structure is demolished. Debris rains down as something massive and grotesque forces its way out. The air is filled with the sound of snapping wood and the wet squelch of moving flesh. A nightmare of tentacles and pale, bulging skin emerges from the ruins of the carriage. It lets out a deafening, inhuman shriek that freezes the blood of everyone nearby. Claire rushes to Jin's side, her face pale as she identifies the horror. She asks if it's a fiend, her voice trembling at the sight of the grotesque mutation. She explains that it's a human who has been completely consumed by the karma of the demon realm. The transformation is irreversible, turning them into a mindless engine of destruction. The protagonist watches with a grim expression, realizing the clients have become the very monsters they were hired to protect. The red glow in his eyes reflects his focus on the new threat. Raymond takes a deep breath, focusing his holy mana for a single, decisive strike. He knows there is no saving what's left of the men inside that thing. He leaps from his horse, his glowing sword raised high as he closes the distance in a blur of motion. The knight aims for the center of the undulating mass. Holy flame strike! A massive pillar of golden light descends, cleaving through the monster's dense flesh. The force of the blow splits the creature's main body in two. The strike continues down, leaving a searing line through the air and the ground. Blood and dark essence spray everywhere as the fiend is seemingly torn asunder. Despite the successful hit, the knight's expression remains tense and alert. He shouts Rex's name again, sensing that the battle is far from over. The red-haired apprentice rushes in with a shout, his sword ready to finish the job. He leaps toward one of the severed pieces, eager to claim the glory of the kill. He swings his blade with everything he has, sending a shockwave through the air. The impact shatters the ground beneath him, but the target doesn't stay down for long. Large chunks of the monster's flesh don't stay still, instead floating and twitching on the grass. Dark slime drips from the severed ends as they begin to vibrate and reconnect. A giant, tooth-filled maw opens in the center of the regenerating mass of flesh. The interior is a dark, swirling void of hunger and ancient malice. Raymond's eyes go wide as he realizes the creature's regeneration is beyond anything he expected. He screams at the apprentice to fall back before it's too late. The monster reforms behind the boy, its multiple eyes glowing with a hateful red light. It looms over him, its massive mouth agape and ready to snap shut. The young fighter grits his teeth, realizing he's been lured into a deadly trap. He looks over his shoulder just as the shadow of the beast falls across his face. A massive tentacle sweeps through the air with incredible speed, catching the apprentice completely off guard. Blood sprays into the sky as the heavy blow connects with his arm. His limb is severed in an instant, his sword falling to the ground along with the mangled remains. He lets out a scream of agony as the force of the attack sends him flying. Chap 10, Raymond charges forward as a massive, fanged mouth looms over Rex. The knight calls out to his apprentice, desperate to intervene before the monster strikes. A spray of fresh blood erupted. The only things left of the apprentice knight were a severed arm and his fallen sword. Jin watches the chaos unfold, his expression tense as he tries to process the sudden horror. Behind him, Claire and the other mercenaries stare in disbelief at the gruesome sight. Raymond was completely frozen, his eyes widening as he stared at the mangled remains of his student dangling high above. Blind frustration boiled over as Raymond gritted his teeth, cursing the creature's unyielding resilience. The situation was spiraling out of control much faster than he had anticipated. With a forceful swing, Raymond unleashes a strike that slices deep into the monster's writhing gray mass. Sparks of mana fly as the blade meets the dense, unnatural flesh. Raymond activates his sacred fire slash, a wave of holy energy carving a massive gash into the creature. The force of the blow sends ripples through the beast's bloated body. The monster lets out a deafening screech, its multiple mouths contorting in agony. Despite the heavy damage, the wound begins to bubble and shift, refusing to stay open. Completely losing his mind, Raymond charged straight toward the writhing remains, desperately clinging to a sliver of hope that his student might still be alive. He charged straight at the mangled maw, tearing at it frantically while screaming Rex's name, desperately urging the young man not to give up, even in the face of hopeless despair. Slender, dark tentacles sprouted from the ground like a cage of thorns, ready to swallow the night whole. The monster was literally terraforming the battlefield with its own rotting flesh. Jin watches the holy knight struggle, his eyes narrowing as he realizes standard holy magic isn't enough to put this thing down. He clenches his jaw, knowing he can't stay on the sidelines for long. While the holy knight had completely lost his resolve, doing nothing but digging frantically, the monster's tentacles lunged toward him. Jin suddenly moves in, grabbing a dazed Raymond and pulling him away from a lethal strike. He moves with a blur of speed that catches the knight completely off guard. They slide across the dirt, narrowly escaping the reach of the monster's thrashing limbs. Jin keeps his focus on the beast, ready to transition from rescue to offense, tossing the knight aside to begin the battle. In Jin's eyes, there was no longer a majestic holy knight to be seen, only a broken man lying sprawled helplessly on the ground. Panic spreads through the group as they realize their strongest fighter is struggling. The mercenaries start to wonder if anyone can actually survive an encounter with a beast like this. The fiend continues to grow and wriggle, its surface a chaotic mess of pulsating lumps and glowing red eyes. It's no longer recognizable as the two men it once was. A roar tears through the air as the monstrosity fully stabilizes its new form. It's a chilling reminder of what happens when human greed is fueled by demonic corruption. Jin stares into the monster's eyes, a dark thought crossing his mind. He survives by eating demon cores, and for a split second, he wonders if this grotesque fate is his own future. He pushes the fear aside, drawing his massive blade as the monster's tongue lashes out. Survival comes first, and that means putting this abomination out of its misery right now. Jin dives into the chaos, dodging a barrage of spear-like tentacles that punch holes into the ground where he stood a second before. He's looking for an opening in the beast's chaotic movements. He brings his sword down in a heavy arc, carving through a thick layer of gray flesh. The sheer mass of the creature makes every hit feel like cutting through solid rubber. Even as the blade passes through, the flesh begins to fuse back together instantly. It's a battle of attrition that Jin knows he can't win with simple physical strikes. He maneuvers through the gaps in the monster's defense, his eyes scanning for a core or a vital point. The constant movement is draining, but he can't afford to stop for even a heartbeat. A massive, toothy maw opens wide, ready to swallow anything that gets too close. The monster's hunger seems bottomless, mirroring the gluttony of the sons who birthed it. Jin delivers a horizontal slash that bites deep into the creature's side, sending a spray of dark fluid into the air. He's testing the monster's limits, seeing just how much damage it can ignore. He slides back, his blade trailing in the dirt as he prepares his next move. The monster is already closing the wounds he just made, its regeneration showing no signs of slowing down. Jin curses under his breath, his eyes fixed on the pulsating heart of the mass. He needs a way to keep those limbs from reattaching if he's going to land a killing blow. A harpoon streaks through the air, its tip gleaming with a cold, metallic light. Someone else is finally joining the fight. The mercenaries launch a coordinated attack, their harpoons and ropes sinking into the beast's soft flesh. They use the momentum to pin the monster's limbs to the ground. Jonathan roared to Jin, letting him know they had his back. Despite the paralyzing fear, they found the grit to stand by their hunter. Claire steps forward, her magical tome glowing with a brilliant blue light. She begins to chant, her fingers hovering over the ancient script as mana gathers around her. A wave of binding magic erupts from Claire, her spell, "Thy sword shall thwart evil," washing over the battlefield. The blue energy begins to coat the severed pieces of the monster. The severed limbs struggle to move, the magical residue acting like a spiritual anchor that prevents them from merging back with the main body. The beast's regeneration is finally being countered. The mercenaries pull their weight, literally, as they strain against the ropes to keep the monster immobilized. They roar in unison, pouring every ounce of strength into holding the line. Jin watches the teamwork with a grim satisfaction, noticing that even the common soldiers are doing their part. It's the opening he needed to finish this. A faint smile tugs at the corner of his mouth as he realizes they haven't completely lost their nerve. Their bravery earns them a rare moment of his respect. Dark fluid drips steadily from the monster's wounds, pooling on the parched earth. The beast is bleeding faster than it can heal for the first time since the mutation began. The monster's aura suddenly shifts, a crackling purple energy erupting from its core as it senses its impending end. Its red eyes glow with a desperate, malevolent light. Jin feels the sudden change in pressure, his instincts screaming that the creature is about to do something drastic. He readies his stance, focusing all his senses on the shifting mana. The faces of Derek and Cedric emerge from the flesh, frozen in a silent scream of agony. The mutation is starting to collapse under the weight of its own corrupted energy. The monstrosity lets out a gut-wrenching roar, its massive form pulsating with a violent, red energy. It's a literal nightmare made of flesh, towering over the clearing. Upon closer look, the horror is even worse. The distorted, screaming faces of the golden bug sons are fused right into the creature's shoulders. Their eyes glow with an unnatural fire as they become part of the very thing they fear. The beast thrashes wildly, its body sprouting dozens of thick, whip-like tentacles that lash out at everything in sight. This isn't just a monster anymore. It's a walking catastrophe. A blur of dark appendages sweeps across the field, cutting through the air with terrifying speed. Every strike is heavy enough to crush bone or snap a tree in half. The mercenaries scramble for their lives as the tentacles crash down around them, shattering the ground. Even Raymond can barely keep his footing as the chaotic assault continues to escalate. The abomination grows even more grotesque, its primary mouth widening into a toothy abyss that seems ready to swallow the entire caravan. It's feeding off the chaos, growing larger with every passing second. Jin doesn't hesitate, leaping into the heart of the chaos with his blade drawn. He's a blur of movement, his eyes fixed on the target while most of the others can only stare in shock. The creature's skin is a thick, pulsating mess of gray muscle and veins, constantly shifting to protect its vitals. It's a defensive nightmare that ignores standard attacks. Jin delivers a heavy horizontal strike, his blade biting deep into the monster's side and sending a spray of dark fluid into the air. He's looking for the core hidden beneath all that bulk. The monster lets out a high-pitched screech as Jin's attack lands, its massive head lolling to the side. It tries to swipe at him, but he's already moving for the next blow. Before it can recover, Jin follows up with a brutal kick right to the center of its face. The impact is heavy, forcing the beast's head back and creating a brief opening. His boot connects with a sickening thud, pinning the monster's head against its own bloated body for a split second. He's using his entire body weight to keep the creature off balance. Jin slides back to regroup with the mercenaries, his breathing steady despite the intensity of the exchange. He checks on Jonathan and the others, who are struggling just to stay standing. The fiend in the background doesn't stop, its many limbs writhing as it prepares for another charge. It seems to have no limit to its regenerative abilities. Jin stays focused, explaining that they just have to keep hacking away at the outer layers. He knows that if they keep cutting, they'll eventually reach the core, the only part that actually matters. Jonathan nods, gripping his weapon with renewed determination. He tells the others not to worry, because as the monster gets stronger, they're also learning exactly how it moves. A cold, confident smile spreads across Jin's face. He's ready to stop playing around and end this. He finally unleashes his newly learned mana arts, his sword erupting in a sinister, swirling purple aura. The dark energy crackles with a power that feels completely different from anything a holy knight would use. "Here I go," he mutters, charging back toward the towering monstrosity. The purple mana trails behind his blade like a ghostly flame. He strikes with blinding speed, the purple aura slicing through the creature's flesh like it's paper. Every swing leaves behind a trail of dark energy that seems to burn the monster's cells. He delivers a crushing overhead strike, the force of his mana arts tearing a massive vertical canyon through the beast's torso. The power is overwhelming, leaving no room for regeneration. The creature screeches in pure agony as its regeneration finally starts to fail against the onslaught of purple mana. The dark energy is preventing the flesh from reattaching. Jin doesn't let up, carving his way through the monster's shoulder and silencing the distorted faces of the sons. He's focused entirely on reaching the center of the mass. Finally, after a relentless struggle, the blue core was exposed. Jin lunged forward, raising his blade high for a decisive strike, his sword seething with the raw power of mana arts. Jin's eyes glow with a piercing red light as he stares down the dying beast. He simply mutters, "It's over." With a single slash, Jin's blade tore the monster's core in two. A massive torrent of blood and essence erupted in its wake, marking the final end of this grotesque abomination. The mercenaries collapse to their knees, panting heavily as the adrenaline starts to fade. They're covered in soot and blood, but they're finally safe. Over by the trees, Claire is doing her best to patch up a heavily wounded Raymond. The Holy Knight looks exhausted, his armor battered and his spirit clearly shaken by the battle. As the monster's body dissolved, the two fragments of the blue core fell onto the grass with a soft thud. They were all that remained of the nightmare they had just fought. The cores rolled across the dirt, while the dark fluids continued to wriggle. A truly horrifying sight to behold. The remaining soldiers break into cheers, raising their fists to celebrate a victory they never thought would come. They're already talking about how their reputations will skyrocket after taking down such an abomination. Amidst the celebration, Jin stands alone, looking at the carnage with a detached expression. He's the one who did the heavy lifting, but he doesn't seem interested in the glory. His face is streaked with grime and blood, but his eyes remain sharp, already looking toward whatever comes next. He's not one to dwell on past victories. One of the internal cores sits quietly on the ground, its blue light reflecting off the damp soil. It's a concentrated mass of demonic essence. One of the younger mercenaries laughs and runs to join his friends, relieved that he lived to tell the tale. He even jokes with Jin, calling him a rascal for surviving such a mess. Hidden behind the ancient trees, a mysterious woman with long red hair and a black veil observed the scene in silence. She had been watching from the shadows the entire time, unnoticed by the caravan. She looks down at the remains of the monster with cold disdain. To her, the Golden Bug's sons were nothing but incompetent failures who were no different from their father. She closes her eyes for a moment, sighing at the poor things. There's no real pity in her voice, only a cold assessment of their worthlessness. Her attention shifts as she spots Jin walking away, a core clutched in his hand. She wonders to herself if that's the man who really fought the abomination. Jin's gloved hand grips the glowing blue orb tightly. He's not leaving any of these valuable resources behind. The veiled woman watches him closely, her curiosity piqued. She silently questions why he's taking the internal core, intrigued by the mysterious hunter's identity. Sitting by the dying embers of the campfire, Kim Woojin, Jin, rummages through his belongings. He seems to be looking for something specific while the rest of the group sleeps. He pulls out a glowing internal core, its blue light illuminating the dark woods around him. He stares at the orb for a moment, weighing the risks. He brings the core to his mouth, ready to absorb its power despite the potential side effects. He knows this is the fastest way to grow stronger. He bites down and closes his eyes, forcing the energy to flow through him. The sensation is intense as he begins to process the core's essence. Suddenly a vision takes hold. A man lies strapped to a cold stone altar, trembling in fear. Jin's consciousness hovers over the scene, realizing he's witnessing someone else's memory. Jin watches his own spectral form, standing beside the captive man. He realizes that the core has granted him access to a piece of the monster's past. The unknown red-haired woman, veiled woman, stands over the captive, mocking him about his father's death. She speaks with a cold, disdainful tone as the man thrashes against his bonds. She tells him that if he wants to survive, he needs to show her results. The laboratory setting is grim, filled with medical tools and another body in the background. She leans in close, holding a small bottle of blue liquid, while the man muffledly begs for his life. Her red eyes are devoid of any empathy. She holds up the bottle, wondering if the captive is worth joining her cause. The glowing blue substance inside looks dangerously volatile. Without a hint of mercy, she pours the liquid directly into the man's eye. He thrashes in agony as dark, corrupt veins begin to spread across his skin. The transformation is gruesome, with dark energy erupting from the man's eye. He is being turned into an abomination right before Jin's eyes. Jin snaps back to reality, his heart racing and sweat drenching his face. The horror of the vision lingers in his mind. The psychic backlash hits his stomach like a hammer, and he begins to gag. White froth spills from his mouth as his body tries to reject the intrusion. He scrambles away from the campsite as fast as he can. He needs to get away from the others before he loses control. He collapses on his hands and knees and throws up violently. The physical toll of absorbing the memory is almost more than he can bear. He gasps for air, his body trembling from the side effects. He wipes his mouth, trying to steady his breathing. He reflects on how internal cores can sometimes force a monster's memories into the consumer. It's a rare and dangerous occurrence that he hadn't fully prepared for. He realizes that the memory belonged to one of the golden bug's sons. He pieces together that they were turned into monsters by having something poured into their eyes. He deduces that the blue liquid must have been karma. This confirms his suspicions about how the abominations are being created. He can't stop thinking about the mysterious woman in the veil from the vision. She seemed to be the one in control of the entire process. He wonders if she could be a dark priest. The thought of such a powerful enemy lurking in the shadows is deeply unsettling. Claire, a young blonde woman in a white blouse and corset, finds him in the woods. She tells him that the group needs to leave immediately. She stops and looks at him with a worried expression. She's noticed how heavily he's sweating and that something is clearly wrong. Claire immediately suspects he's been eating cores again and asks him what happened. She looks both concerned and a bit frustrated with him. Jin wonders if he should tell her the truth about the memory vision. He realizes it would be difficult to explain and might only cause more worry. He tells her it's nothing and decides to keep the revelation a secret for now. He walks back toward the camp, keeping his guard up. From behind the trees, someone was watching them. The observer remained perfectly still, completely shrouded in darkness. It's the unknown red-haired woman, veiled woman herself. She watches Jin from a distance, her expression unreadable behind her veil. She stays hidden as Jin and Claire head back to join the rest of the group. She seems to be tracking their movements very closely. Her sharp red eyes narrow as she focuses on Jin. She's clearly taking a special interest in him. She observes the group from the safety of the trees. She finds it intriguing that someone who eats raw internal cores is working with the Order Alliance. She wonders if he's plotting something of his own. A small, curious smile plays on her lips under the veil. She seems to be enjoying the mystery surrounding him. She wonders whether they will be allies or enemies when they eventually meet again. She adjusts her attire and prepares to move on. The scene shifts to a solemn morning on a sunlit cliffside. The group has gathered for a very specific purpose. They are holding a funeral for their fallen comrade, with the silver-haired knight Raymond leading the ceremony. Claire bows her head in prayer while Jin watches silently from the side. Raymond offers a prayer to E, the god of harmony, over the makeshift grave. A sword has been placed at the head of the burial site as a marker. He speaks about Rex, saying he was braver than anyone and dedicated his life to peace. The weight of the loss is evident in his voice. He asks the god to watch over Rex so that his passing is not in vain. The rest of the group stands in respectful silence on the edge of the cliff. Jin watches from a distance, thinking about how young Rex was. He remembers their single duel and feels a quiet sense of pity for the fallen man. Suddenly, Raymond's eyes shift as he senses something watching them from above. He looks up toward the rocks, his mourning interrupted by a new presence. Raymond stares up at the rocky outcrop, his eyes wide with shock. Behind him, Kim Woojin, Jin, and the others look on with confusion at whatever has caught the knight's attention. Perched atop the high cliff is the silhouette of a massive creature. Raymond recognizes it immediately, gasping the name of a red wolf as the sun shines brightly behind it. The red wolf, Mutt, stands tall against the sky, its blue eyes glowing with a supernatural light. Two long, ribbon-like appendages drift from its back, swaying slowly in the wind as it growls. Raymond suddenly drops to his knees, planting his massive sword in the ground. He shouts out his gratitude, startling Jin and the rest of the group with his sudden religious fervor. Jin looks down at the kneeling knight, completely baffled by the display. Raymond explains that he is expressing his thanks for the divine comfort provided by E, the god of harmony. According to the Order's beliefs, the red wolf is considered the closest companion to their god. While Raymond is lost in prayer, the sacred beast simply lets out a wide, lazy yawn from its perch. With a serene expression, Raymond continues his explanation of the wolf's appearance. To him, the creature's presence is a clear sign that their god is looking down on them in their time of grief. Jin shatters the solemn moment by casually referring to the creature as his pet mutt. Raymond nearly jumps out of his skin, shouting that such a claim is blasphemy against a beast that supposedly can't be tamed. Raymond is convinced that Jin must be joking, but the hunter looks completely serious. Jin ignores the knight's protests and decides to call the creature over with a simple command. Jin stares directly at the wolf on the cliff, his own eyes carrying a sharp, commanding gaze. He tells the mutt to stop acting out and get down there immediately. The red wolf's ears perk up as it looks down at Jin, its expression shifting from majestic to startled. It seems to recognize the authority in the hunter's voice and prepares to move. To the absolute shock of the knights, The divine messenger leaps from the high rock. It bounds down the cliffside with ease, heading straight toward the group below. The wolf lands submissively in front of Jin, panting like an ordinary dog. Raymond stands there frozen, his jaw dropping as he witnesses the untamable beast acting like a loyal pet. Raymond is left reeling, his entire worldview momentarily shattered. He can't wrap his head around how a single individual could have managed to tame a creature his entire order considers sacred. Jin casually explains that he killed a werewolf a while back, and this creature has been tailing him ever since. He speaks as if he's talking about a stray dog he picked up on the street. Raymond stares at Jin with a mix of awe and total bewilderment. He's beginning to realize that the man he's traveling with is far from ordinary. The knight turns his gaze back toward the makeshift funeral site. The presence of the wolf has certainly changed the atmosphere of the morning. The red wolf sits quietly near the grave of the fallen knight, its large tail swishing through the grass. It seems surprisingly calm given the religious significance Raymond placed on it. Raymond turns back to Jin, his voice now much more humble as he prepares to ask a favor. Jin raises an eyebrow, waiting to hear what the knight has to say. He suggests that if the wolf doesn't already have a name, Jin should call it Rex. He looks hopeful, clearly wanting to honor his fallen friend in some way. Raymond admits that calling a creature his order considers sacred a mutt is a bit inappropriate. He hopes that giving it a proper name will restore some of its dignity in their eyes. He explains that Rex was a man of single-minded resolve who fought to purify the demonic realm. He wishes for that same will to live on through the wolf. Raymond flashes back to the final moments of his friend, seeing Rex's hand gripped tightly around his sword even as he fell. The memory is clearly painful for the silver-haired knight. With his eyes closed and hands clasped over his sword, Raymond pleads for the wolf to carry on Rex's legacy. He looks like he's asking for a blessing as much as a name. Jin takes a moment to consider the request, looking down at the ground. The idea of carrying on a dead knight's legacy through a wolf is a bit heavy. He looks over at the red wolf, which is staring back at him with its glowing blue eyes. He asks the creature if it's actually okay with taking on the name Rex. The wolf gives a firm nod, its expression serious as it accepts the new identity. It seems to understand the weight of the request perfectly. Jin turns back to the knight and agrees to the name. He's willing to go along with it if it helps Raymond find some peace. A look of pure relief and gratitude washes over Raymond's face. He offers a small smile and thanks Jin for honoring his request. The moment of quiet is broken by the sound of approaching footsteps. Someone new has arrived at the cliffside, catching the attention of both Jin and Raymond. An old man enters the scene, walking with a wooden staff. Raymond and Jin both turn to face the newcomer with looks of surprise and alertness. Raymond is completely stunned, stuttering out the word elder as he recognizes the man. The newcomer is accompanied by another man in similar gray and orange robes. Jin watches the old man carefully, sensing an aura of immense power and authority. He realizes that this isn't just some random traveler wandering the cliffs. A text box reveals the man's identity, Elder Bo of the 3rd Pioneer City. He is a blindfolded man wearing orange monk-like robes and large wooden prayer beads, and he is one of the highest authorities in the region.